The power of this attack was unleash. The power of this attack was unleash. The power of the ancient inheritance was extraordinary. A flame that could even vaporize Red Dog. How powerful was the power of this flame? It was hard to imagine. However, in front of the power of the darkness, he could only submit obediently. The power of darkness, Zero Seal, was indeed quite impressive, and Long Fei recognized how awesome he was once again. As the system beep landed, Long Fei couldn't wait to open the system to check on the so-called ancient fire soul, to see why the Jiao Luo realm of Universal Large World would place such a flame here. Item: Ancient Fire Soul Attribute, Fire Attack, Damage, Skills, Description. Other than its name and stats, everything else was a question mark. Long Fei was a little puzzled. Damn, are you kidding me? How are you going to use it if you don't know how to hurt Lousy? What if it turned out to be an MIS? Isn't that a big trap? Long Fei said unhappily. Although it was something that was protected by the variant White Apes for 7 to 8 million years, or even tens of millions of years. There were also the Jiao Luo realm's mysterious energy rune formations to provide energy, however. What exactly is it? What's the use? What harm? Long Fei didn't know anything. The White Ape King said that it could be used against the ancient giant, but how could he contend against something that he did not even know how to use? Long Fei felt that he had been tricked. Sister, do you know? Even the system doesn't know. Long Fei could only ask the Sleeping Beauty. She was an omnipotent existence. The system might not know, but it might be out of the system's control in 100,000 dimensions. If the system were to upgrade to the primordial version, then he might be able to find out. It was impossible to level up now. Just when Long Fei thought that she had fallen asleep, she slowly said, "Ancient Fire Soul, this is the first time I've heard of it. If it really came from the Kiara realm, then. She was somewhat excited. He didn't dare to say it out loud. Long Fei could not wait any longer, and asked, "Sister, can you explain everything? What exactly is it?" The Sleeping Beauty said, "Then it might also be the first power of the ancient inheritance. It might be an inherited power that was bred in the primordial ancient world. The Kiara realm is one of the mysterious planes in the universal large world, and also the most ancient realm. This ancient fire soul is most likely an ancient inheritance power." Hearing up to this point, Long Fei felt a little stupefied. He immediately became excited. The mightiness of the power of the darkness caused Long Fei to be extremely excited. He knew that the power of the ancient inheritance was extremely strong, and this power was quite impressive as well. Ha ha ha. Long Fei laughed in his heart. "I'm going to send it." Ha ha ha. An ancient inheritance was an unreachable existence in the universal large world. With 2 pieces of inheritance power, it was like a cow standing on its head. The single stream of ancient inheritance on Long Fei's body had attracted the attention of countless ancient family, causing the Dragon Manor and the Mu clan to fall into danger. If another set of ancient inheritance comes, the entire universal large world would probably tremble because of it. The Sleeping Beauty said slightly, "This is just my guess. Whether it is the power of the ancient inheritance or not I cannot confirm, so don't be too happy." Long Fei grinned and laughed. "No need to guess, it's definitely that. Long Fei's character has always been good, I can't be wrong." Long Fei firmly believed in this. The Sleeping Beauty smiled faintly and said, "Have you ever thought about why the people of the Kiara realm do not cultivate if it's the power of the ancient inheritance? Why did you put it in such a low plane? Don't you think this doesn't make sense?" Indeed. Stretching out from the universal large world, if an ancient inheritance could let a plane flourish forever, why would it be placed in another world? Long Fei was slightly taken aback. He couldn't be bothered to care about all these. The ancient fire soul was currently in his body. Sleeping Beauty was also a person who didn't want to think too much about things. Thinking about how she couldn't figure out a place, her mind went into a frenzy. "I don't want to. I think I should go to sleep." As he spoke, he stretched his back. And then he fell asleep. Long Fei did not disturb her. Instead, he sat cross-legged and muttered to himself, "Ancient fire soul, how do you want to use it?" Ching. The 4 fires were formed. Its strength was likely the pinnacle of the fire element. Even Xiao Yang's heavenly flame was unable to compare with it. In addition, it also had another attribute, soul of flame, or the inheritance of fire in the ancient inheritance. These problems could probably only be solved after Long Fei enters the universal large world. Long Fei moved. The ancient fire soul rushed out from Long Fei's palm like a thin golden dragon made of flames, moving between the gaps of his fingers in a very gentle manner. Long Fei looked at the soul that seemed to be alive. How exactly do I use it? I should push it out to have a look. Long Fei pushed out with his right palm. The ancient fire soul seemed to have not sensed it, as it continued to wrap around Long Fei's finger, showing no signs of leaving, nor did it cause any harm. Long Fei tested it a few times. Whether it was palm, fist, blade, or sword, they were all the same. This was a bit awkward. With the ancient inheritance in his hand, how would he use it? Was there anything more tragic than this? Like a cook cooking in the kitchen and starving to death. Damn you. What should I do to release it? In Long Fei's heart, he was still thinking of using it to deal with the ancient giant, explode with a holy artifact, and complete the main artifact's mission. He was completely confused. Thinking of the ancient giant. Long Fei's eyes turned cold. How long have I been here? Although it didn't take long. However, this was an energy array space. He had already been here for 10 days. He did not know this. Once the idea was put away, they returned the ancient fire soul into his body. Long Fei said, "Let's leave this place first and think of a way. Maybe White Ape King knows how to use it." Long Fei turned and walked toward the cave entrance. However, the moment he stepped out of the cave, it was pitch black. There was no light. Long Fei gently touched it with his right hand. Snow? A thick layer of snow. Holy *T. Why did it suddenly fill up the hole? How long have I been in there? Just as Long Fei was about to dig a snow cave and leave, at the place where his right hand was touching, a ray of red light suddenly shot out like a laser beam. Boom! A loud sound echoed out. The power to destroy the heavens and earth was mediocre. A straight passageway of a few thousand meters led directly to the outside of the valley. The thick blood on both sides of the path instantly fused together. Moreover, with this loud sound, the ice and snow within a radius of 1,000 meters completely disappeared in a few seconds. This power. A fierce battle. Chapter 2098, Rushing Down. Chapter 2098, Rushing Down. Long Fei was dumbstruck. He was completely dumbfounded. Looking at his right hand, then looking at the exposed valley, his throat started to roll, and he swallowed hard. Fuck. Isn't this too explosive? Then he looked at his right hand. There were no changes, nor were there any undulations of power. It was as if nothing had happened. However, Long Fei was very clear that this was definitely the power of an ancient fire soul. Could it be? Let it continue to be wrapped around a certain place. Will a certain place be able to unleash its superpower? Long Fei muttered as he looked at his right hand, his gaze immediately becoming tense. He then swallowed his food, and muttered, "Next time, I will use my right hand to test my limits." Left hand. You definitely can't bang the ancient fire soul with your left hand. At least you can keep the fifth lady's mate. If it's still. Long Fei looked at his crotch out, and then became evil. However, in the end, he decided to just forget it. This guy. Right now, Long Fei could not control himself. After all, he had destroyed his own brother. Ha ha ha. The ancient fire soul, compete fiercely. Long Fei became excited, although he still did not know how to control it, he knew how to release it now. It was enough to know that. Looking at the direction, Long Fei muttered, "We have to hurry back." He didn't know how much time had passed. However, looking at the thick layer of snow covering the entrance of the cave, it should have been several days already. Moreover, the fact that White Ape King was not outside the valley also meant that a long time had passed. There was another possibility, that something had happened to White Ape tribe. Long Fei swallowed a few pellets which could help him recover his holy power value, released the sky principle and jumped into the air. The space between his eyebrows tightened. Crap. With an anxious expression, he flew out crazily. The polar storm had already arrived at the deep abyss mountain. Polar storm were already very scary. However, what was even more terrifying was that the ancient god legion that was hidden in the eyes of polar storm foam. No one in Beast's tribes knew that the ancient god legion was hiding in the storm. Once the polar storm enters the south side of the deep abyss mountain, the bunker Long Fei asked them to build would not work at all. All the demons would probably die, and the others. Then he, the demon emperor, would be treated as a useless boss. Main temple. The polar storm has entered the deep abyss mountain. Ha ha ha. This polar storm possesses supreme power capable of freezing peak high gods. Even if we were to go near it, we would feel an incomparable chill. Long Fei will definitely not be able to hold on. I can't wait for him to die inside right now. This time, the polar storm are extremely powerful, and the entire deep abyss mountain will be frozen for several years. No matter how strong Long Fei is, he won't be able to withstand it and will be frozen to death soon. Ha ha ha. The main temple's gods watched the gigantic storm in the sky above the deep abyss mountain. They all smiled excitedly. Every one of them wanted Long Fei to die in this storm, because this meant that their biggest threat had disappeared. Battleground. The evil god's forehead was locked. The people of the main temple hoped that Long Fei would die in this storm, but he was different. He hoped that Long Fei would live until he reached the ancient entry. In that case, he would retreat and return to his side. With Long Fei's help, he would counterattack. However, was in a dangerous place, and his life was in danger. The evil god thought, "Brat, you have to hold on." Deep Abyss Mountain. The cold wind howled, and the wind blades were bone-piercing. The branch of a towering tree was cut down at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving only the trunk. A gust of wind blew past, uprooting the trunk. He hit the other side of the hill. With a loud explosion, half of the mountainside was flattened. In the midst of the hurricane, more and more miscellaneous items were sucked into the tree, forming a super hurricane. When a hurricane landed in the forest, logically speaking, the wind speed should have decreased, but not only did the polar storm not decrease in size, it had become even more ferocious. It was unstoppable. The entire deep abyss mountain was trembling, as if groaning in pain. Master Long Fei will definitely be fine. Hubby will definitely be fine. King Demon will definitely be fine. Within the underground castle, there were many women around the fire. They put their hands together and started to pray. They were all praying to Long Fei. Rumble. A towering tree smashed onto their bunker, causing rubble to fall and cause a wave of panic. Grandma, could it be that the bunker can't take it? The Fox clan leader raised his head to look at the cracked rock above his head and said, "It will be fine, it will definitely be fine." Rumble. 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 The entire deep abyss mountain was filled with the sounds of explosions, be it the whistling of the cold wind, or the huge trees that reached the sky being pulled up and smashed down. Also, the rush of the variant white apes. In the distance, the sky spirit's gaze tightened and both of its hands sank. It immediately turned into a streak of ghostly light and darted out. Because he saw a group of variant white ape following behind Li Yuanba and dragon descending. "Tianling, stop!" Li Yuanba shouted loudly, "They are friends." He put away the ghost vein method, took a look at it, and asked, "Where's Boss?" Li Yuanba shook his head. Boss followed White Ape King to a valley, and hasn't returned yet. F***CK. You can even believe in these demon beast. The dangerous aura I sense in the north is them. The spirit of heaven is suspicious of these demon beast. A variant white ape suddenly stood up, staring at the heavenly spirit and bellowed, "What did you say?" The heavenly spirit was not afraid, it sneered, "Did you not hear what I said? Then, I will say it again, I do not believe in these demon beast. You don't believe me? All right. Since you don't believe me, then let's fight on our own. Let's go." The variant white ape shouted and turned to leave. What they hated the most were humans, and they disdained fighting together with humans. Furthermore, since Long Fei had killed their brothers, they hated humans even more. The words of the sky spirit enraged them. Li Yuanba immediately stopped him and said, "You also said just now that there are ancient legion in the polar storm. You cannot deal with them alone, we must work together. If you want to go back to the polar regions." And then, Li Yuanba looked at Sky Spirit and said, "Sky Spirit, they have saved boss before, you should be more polite when you speak." Just as the Sky Spirit was about to speak, Li Yuanba glared at him. At this critical moment, Long Fei did not know that Li Yuanba had to shoulder the task of surrounding the beast's tribes. Dragon's eyes darkened. He looked into the distance and suddenly shouted, "Everyone be careful." Chapter 2099 Fusion of the Powers of Two Heaven Pillar. Chapter 2099 Fusion of the Powers of Two Heaven Pillar. A Kai sound was heard. Just like a ray of sword energy, it slashed a thousands of meters tall mountain in half. A hurricane rolled out. Boom. Followed by a thunderous boom, hundreds of thousands of tons of half-mountain peaks came crashing down towards their heads. It was incomparably fast. The mountains covered the sky. Li Yuanba's gaze tensed up as his mind filled with shock. This was not the power of the storm at all. The power of the storm could not cut down the mountain. It was even more impossible for them to fly towards them. Dodge. The variant white ape let out a heavy roar. However, the speed of the mountain was simply too fast. There was no time to dodge it. Li Yuanba's body exploded as he flew up into the sky, going up against it alone. It was also at this time. A variant white ape also flew into the air, all of its hair exploded, its fists like hammers, as it flew towards the sky. Rumble. 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 Broken rocks filled the sky. Even though the two of them had destroyed half of the mountain at the same time, countless rocks exploded in the surroundings like bombs. Boom. A bunker collapsed. Miserable screams of pain came from inside. Li Yuanba's heart tensed up, and immediately said, "Luo Long, go take care of the injured. Tianling, come with me." Li Yuanba rubbed his bald head, and cursed out loud, "Mother f***ka. Let's see how strong your ancient legion is." With a heavy clench of his right hand, the black giant spirit axe descended, and the pure divine power of Li Yuanba's body exploded outwards. They were heading in the direction of the polar storm. The white ape tribe called Li Yuanba and the heavenly spirit rushed towards the polar storm. They didn't dare to show any weakness either. Moreover, just as Li Yuanba said, if they wanted to return to the extreme lands, they had to work together. Moreover, their bodies could not take it anymore. If they could not handle the polar storm, they would not be able to go back. They would die here. Over 1,000 variant white ape rushed over, causing the earth to tremble. Amongst the polar storm, the leading ancient giant's empty eyes revealed a look of contempt. "You overestimate yourself. You think you can compete with me? Humph." He brandished the long sword in his hand. A surge of power surged into the polar storm. Next, ice and snow formed arrows. Under the effect of the hurricane, the snow and ice covering the sky turned into countless sharp arrows that shot down one after another. They were densely packed and covered the sky. The Sky Spirit looked at the black mass in the sky and felt his scalp tingle. He could not help but mutter to himself, "What exactly are these?" Li Yuanba said, "White Ape Tribe said that there are people hidden within the hurricane. These people control the hurricane. As long as these people are overturned, the polar storm will disappear." Looks like it was indeed true. The heavenly spirit moved slightly, saying, "Vaja, now is not the time to talk about this. The rain of arrows in the sky is about to turn into a sieve." White Ape Tribe slightly said, "Protect them." However, Li Yuanba took a step ahead of them and said, "You guys hide behind us." The coffin on his back shook. He landed on the ground. Li Yuanba looked at the rain of arrows, grinned foolishly and laughed. "Giant spirit coffin. Shua." The giant spirit coffin flew into the air. The variant white ape muttered, "How big is a coffin? It can't block too large of an area, and it can't withstand arrows that contain the power of law either." Not waiting for him to finish, the giant spirit coffin moved as if it was moving, transforming into a gigantic coffin in the sky, covering a distance of thousands of kilometers. Let alone them, even if it was 10 times the number of people, it would not be a problem. The giant spirit coffin itself was a treasure. This was something that Li Yuanba had never used before. The variant White Ape clan member was slightly surprised. The arrows had all landed on the giant spirit coffin and were blocked by the thick sarcophagus. They were completely shocked. The sky spirit laughed excitedly. Big guy is indeed big guy. Awesome. 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 While they were talking, the heavenly spirit's hands sank. The idea covered tens of thousands of meters. Its body was like a ghost. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Asterisk, he rushed out. The variant White Ape also reacted, shouting out, charge. While propping the giant spirit coffin up to block the arrow's movement time, he pulled in the distance between him and the polar storm. The variant White Ape said in a deep voice, we cannot let the humans see it all. The polar storm is extremely cold, they definitely cannot get close, it is for us to do the deed. Do you understand? Ha! The variant White Ape bellowed loudly. Hualala! Hualala! The first to approach the polar storm, however. His body was still 100 meters away, and his entire body seemed to have been frozen. His speed. His strength seemed to have vanished. Cold. It was incomparably cold. The blood vessels were freezing. Ah! His eyes were bloodshot, and a drop of blood essence fell into his mind. His entire person became incomparably malevolent. He was like a ferocious ghost from the infernal realm. The variant White Ape caught up and shouted, jump onto my back. Their resistance to the cold was much stronger than a heavenly spirit. Although the heavenly spirit was unwilling, it did not care that much at this time. If Long Fei was not here, King Kong had to shoulder the responsibility of protecting the beast's tribes. He jumped onto the variant White Ape's body. The White Ape shouted, sit tight. Formation. Boom, boom, boom. Thousands of variant White Ape formed the cone shape, using this formation to resist the chill released from the polar storm. He dashed forward at high speed. However, this distance of 100 meters was like tens of thousands of kilometers. Even if the White Ape tribe were to use this formation, it would still be extremely difficult for them to advance forward. The polar storm was too strong. The leading White Ape had already been frozen, and once again climbed up. In less than half a second, it was frozen, and went up again. At this moment, he apologized for his actions and words. White Ape tribe was quite fierce. At this moment, Li Yuanba, who was sitting on a variant White Ape, also sat down and chased after her. Get the hell out of my way. Li Yuanba laughed excitedly, then said to the White Ape, send us there. The variant White Ape let out a low roar. Immediately, more and more White Ape moved forward, even if their bodies were to be frozen. They got closer and closer. 30 meters. 20 meters. 10 meters. Among the polar storm, the one leading them, the giant god, shouted, you're courting death. The ancient legion behind him trembled. Immediately, killing intent soared to the heavens. And just at that moment, Li Yuanba suddenly flew into the air, his heavenly spirit following closely behind. Divine power heaven pillar. Spirit controlling heaven pillar. Fit. The pure divine power from Li Yuanba's body shot out into the sky, like a heaven pillar dropping from the sky. At the same time, the same thing happened with the sky spirit. The heaven pillar S covered his entire body and the two types of heaven pillar energy began fusing together crazily. The fusion of two great King Kong powers. This was the first time that the heaven pillar's power had fused together. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2100 Space Teleportation. Chapter 2100 Space Teleportation 8 King Kong, Ancient World's 8 Heaven Pillar. The power of 8 different elements. They were the ones who supported the sky of the ancient world. The Heaven Pillar's power was the deepest hidden power in their bodies, and this power was their source of power. In the infernal realm, Long Zhanting had let them know about his identity and their origin strength. This kind of Heaven Pillar power was awakened from hellish cultivation. But, in these 100,000 dimensions, the amount of Heaven Pillar that they could awaken was very little. However, being sparse didn't mean that he wasn't strong enough. On the contrary, it was very powerful. The power of the god realm heaven pillar and the spirit-controlling beast quickly fused together. In the sky, a beam of golden light pierced through the clouds and fell down, covering them and the entire base storm. It was just like a miracle. Everyone stared at the sky with widened eyes. What kind of power is this? What is this? I've never seen such power. Did you feel it? There's no cold, there's no gale, and the polar storm doesn't seem to exist. Even the threatening aura of the ancient legion within the polar storm has disappeared. The two of them. What kind of background is that? All the variant white apes looked up in respect. Within the polar storm, the ancient giant legion looked up at the sky. The leading ancient giant's hollow eyes shook as the long sword in his hand continuously slashed out several times. The wind howled again. Within the gale, a super great sword came slashing forward. Any kind of power is trash in front of me, here. I'm the paragon. The giant god was furious. The red light around his body trembled, and the air rumbled with explosions as a dark and cold power of the ancient code appeared without restraint, enveloping both Li Yuanba and the heavenly spirit. At this moment, their powers were still fusing. The moment the giant god's power came crushing over, Li Yuanba's eyes opened wide in anger as he shouted, "What the hell do you think you're capable of controlling in this place? Damn it! I'll let you know what power is." Before he could finish, the heaven pillar's power combined into one. It was as if an incomparably thick rod had come crashing down from the sky. Heaven pillar bomb. Hualala. 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 Beneath the heaven pillar was a stretch of ruins, causing space to distort and crack. It was simply unable to withstand the energy released by the heaven pillar and was exceptionally powerful. The hurricane was crushed. It was as if he had been slapped to the ground and stopped. The power of the ancient code released by the ancient giant only lasted for a few seconds before it shattered. The power of law also couldn't withstand it. The ancient giant legion looked shocked. The leader of the ancient giant tensed his gaze, and the long sword in his hand transformed into a golden light, which formed a protective barrier around the entire ancient legion. Buzz! The barrier spread out for tens of thousands of meters. The faces of all the variant white ape clansmen trembled. Too strong. Ha ha ha. The ancient giant actually wants to defend. This is the first time. He was the former sovereign. He actually had to defend. Ha ha ha. Delighted, these two humans exploded. Ha ha ha. Incomparable excitement. The strength of the heaven pillar was extremely terrifying. Even Powerhouse, who was once a sovereign, had to passively defend. Even so. However, Li Yuanba looked at the golden barrier above Ancient Legion's head and had a bad feeling. The two of them looked at each other. At this moment, they had no other choice but to release the power of the heaven pillar in their bodies to the maximum. It slammed down heavily on the golden barrier. Boom. Rumble. Golden light shot in all directions as it cracked open. Waves of intense light burst out, and the scene was like the end of the world. Everything around was collapsing. The heaven-shaking mountain range was immediately split in half by this heaven pillar's power, separating the deep abyss mountains north and south. A bottomless abyss appeared below the heaven pillar. He was utterly shocked. This is too terrifying. The mountains have been cut off. Oh my god. These two guys aren't human at all. The true deep abyss mountain was in a state of shock. Long Fei trembled slightly as he stopped moving and thought to himself, an aura of power that has never appeared before. Whose power is this? No way. No matter who unleashed this power, I will definitely rush back at full speed. A mad rush. He pushed the speed of the wings of the sky to the limit. The huge explosion from the deep abyss mountain made Long Fei feel uneasy. Li Yuanba shouted, "Who is the paragon now?" In ruins. With a slight movement, he released the ruler armament. With a frown, he asked, "All of them are dead." He couldn't feel the aura of the ancient giant at all. It was as if he had completely disappeared. Could it be that one strike from before had killed them all? The heavenly spirit turned to look at Li Yuanba, shaking his head to indicate that he could not sense their auras. The variant white ape clan member let out a roar of excitement. Ha ha ha. I've turned them into nothing but dregs. One, ha ha ha. The power of that last attack was simply too great. Even ancient giant may not be able to withstand this kind of power. Killing them all was a very normal thing. However, Li Yuanba felt that something was not quite right. The fusion of the Heaven Pillar's powers was indeed very strong, but the last bit of golden light released by the ancient giant was not a protective barrier, but was more like a formation. Even if it was a barrier, after being smashed into pieces by the Heaven Pillar, not even a bone would be left behind. Something must have gone wrong. The same was true for the Sky Spirit. It felt very strange. The two of them were not the least bit excited. Moreover, they had to be careful in this world at all times. He was on full alert. Li Yuanba said slightly, "Tianling, come back first." Just as he was about to fly back to Li Yuanba's side, his gaze darkened. He looked at the sky above Li Yuanba's head and roared out fiercely, "King Kong, be careful." The void moved. Golden light covered the sky. Streams of golden light appeared above Li Yuanba's head. Each golden light represented this ancient giant. At this moment, tens of thousands of golden lights fell down. This also meant that 10,000 attacks had fallen. Li Yuanba raised his eyes and his body suddenly sank. At the same time, Ancient Giant shouted and said, "You have to be careful yourself." Rumble. A golden light also descended from above. Similarly, the golden light did not give him any time to react. Rumble. 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 The power of the ancient giant exploded outwards. One after another, the attacks came crashing down. Li Yuanba was instantly thrown to the ground, while the Sky Spirit was also smashed to the ground by the ancient giant leader. Both of them spat out blood, and were severely injured. Ancient Giant heavily landed and laughed coldly. "I said it before, this place. I am the paragon. Ha ha ha." Chapter 2101, Here I am Lord. Chapter 2101, Here I am Lord, laughing wildly. Everything happened too quickly. It was so fast that Li Yuanba and the others did not even have time to react. The power of these ancient giantess was also beyond their imagination. Heaven Pillar's power was indeed terrifying. However, in that instant, the ancient giant used a teleportation technique, just like the big move of Rhodes in the LOL game, teleporting the ancient legion to another place in the blink of an eye. A place you never thought of. Even if Li Yuanba and the Spirit of Heaven were to be on high alert, it would still be the same. He couldn't react in time. Variant White Apes were even more shocked. Their hearts were also full of cold air, their faces were filled with shock, as though they were dead. Too strong. Even the strength of Heaven Pillar was unable to deal with it. Their strength was even less. Li Yuanba was extremely unhappy, and said, "You're the ruler? Go on, master your grandmother, you rotten skeleton, you perverted bastard, you can master a hammer, at most, you're just a god who has gone out of his way." Even though he had been crushed, Li Yuanba was also as fierce and arrogant as before. While he was speaking, boom, boom, the continuous barrage of attacks from the ancient giant army caused Li Yuanba to lie prone on the ground. A deep pit appeared on the ground. The surroundings of the pit were filled with dense blood threads. All the blood veins were from Li Yuanba's body. Every part of his body had been wounded. It was incomparably painful. However, Li Yuanba seemed to not know. He supported himself with his hands, stood up, and laughed out loud. "Come, if you have the ability, then blast me to death." Ha ha ha. The spirits began to laugh wildly as they picked themselves up from the ground. "You're right. If you have the ability to do so, then kill me." The two of them were like madmen. A complete lunatic. Despite being crushed to this extent, he still continued to act arrogantly. The variant White Apes were all confused. The leading ancient giant said with a cold laugh, "Do you really think that you won't die just because you have a special undead power on you? How laughable. How sad. What kind of existence was the ancient giant? He was a former sovereign. Although the power of the ancient code has been separated, he was once the king of law, so even without it, he would still be a peak powerhouse. With one look, he could see that Li Yuanba and the celestial spirit had special undead power on them. Li Yuanba and the Sky Spirit slightly tightened their eyes. Indeed, they had the power of the King of Hell, Long Zhanting, to protect their lives. The real undead power. However, they did not expect to be seen through by the ancient giant in a single glance. Since he was seen through, Li Yuanba had nothing to hide. He shouted, "It's the undead power, come and kill us." Not waiting for him to finish. The giant god leader's eyes darkened. Shua. The void vanished. With a flash of golden light, it instantly appeared above Li Yuanba's head. With a hand seal, the sword in his other hand suddenly turned pitch black. To the center of Li Yuanba's head, a sword pierced down. When the Sky Spirit saw this, it was shocked. His body was special, he was neither human nor demon, but the place he attacked was hell, and he was very clear about some aspects of the power of death. Ancient Giant's sword. It could break the undead power on Li Yuanba's body. However, Li Yuanba did not care that much and heavily roared, "Come, if you can't kill me, then I'll kill you." At this moment, his body secretly changed. The reason why the power of the Vajra body was unleashed was to enrage the ancient giant, and to make him kill him. Because at such a close distance, he was able to completely unleash the power of the Vajra body. "You're courting death," he harumphed coldly. The sword stabbed down. "Ah!" Li Yuanba roared, his entire body was covered with King Kong runes, the red light surrounding him exploded, both of his fists striking towards the sky. He just didn't submit. It was tough. However, this time, Li Yuanba was a little too fierce. The power of the ancient giant was too terrifying. Even if his power could cause harm to the ancient giant, it wouldn't be able to kill him. However, at this critical moment, a silver-white shadow rushed out. At that moment, silver armor appeared all over his body. He entered the berserk beast state. Boom! With a loud sound, he grabbed Li Yuanba with one hand and flew him out. Rumble! The sword stabbed down. A ray of golden light pierced 1,000 meters deep into the ground. The scene was extremely terrifying. This power would definitely be able to penetrate Li Yuanba's body and would not be able to resist it at all. Li Yuanba's heart sank. If he was not saved earlier, he would already be dead. He turned to his rescuer and said, "Thank you." A white ape. It was an incomparably huge white ape. Her entire body was covered in silver armor, and gave off a scarlet-red glow. It was the variant White Ape King who had entered the berserk beast state. Many White Ape tribes roared. Li Yuanba immediately asked, "White Ape King, where's my boss?" White Ape King's expression darkened as he said faintly, "I'm sorry." Hearing these 3 words, Li Yuanba's heart immediately sunk. His violent temper also rose as he shouted heavily, and said, "What do you mean? What did you do to my boss?" White Ape King said, "He might never come back again." "I'm sorry." Sorry again. He really did not expect it to be that kind of result. He waited outside the valley for 7 days and 7 nights, and only left after the snow had covered the entire valley once again. Not coming out for 7 days and 7 nights was enough to explain everything. "Long Fei, I can't get out." Li Yuanba grabbed White Ape King's white hair and shouted, "Say it again." He did not care whether the White Ape King had saved him or not. To Li Yuanba, Long Fei's life was more important than anything else. Their 8 King Kong lived for Long Fei, and the strength of the 8 Great Heaven Pillar appeared for Long Fei. Long Fei was no longer there. Then what was the point of their 8 King Kong living? The White Ape King did not explain and said again, "I'm sorry." While they were talking, his body moved again. Shua, ancient giant's eyes turned sinister. "Humph! You reckless beast!" Boom! A loud sound rang out in the air. No one could see what was happening. In the blink of an eye, White Ape King had brought the heavenly spirit back. A stream of sword chi pierced through his chest, causing blood to gush out like a fountain. White Ape King acted as if he didn't feel pain. He shouted loudly, "White Ape tribe, listen up. Take the 2 of them and escape as far as you can. Don't look back. Faster." White Ape King shouted and once again rushed forward. The ancient giant laughed coldly, "You are overestimating yourselves. Is a variant white ape like you worthy to fight with me?" This is simply courting death. They did not even put these variant white ape in their eyes. If they had the qualifications to fight him, then the variant white ape would not have been driven to the deep abyss mountain. Rumble. Rumble. Boom. 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 The white ape king did not care about his life. Every time he would fight to the death, using all his strength. Those variant white apes ignored Li Yuanba and the heavenly spirit's resistance and carried them as they ran towards the southern side of the deep abyss mountain. The ancient giant leader waved his sword a few times, and the polar storm started to spin again. Chapter 2102 The Calamity is Still Around, Long Fei is Not Dead. Chapter 2102 The Calamity is Still Around, Long Fei is Not Dead. Once Ancient Legion had tried many times. But every time, it ended in failure. They were unable to pass through the deep abyss mountain's defensive line. They were just like the variant white apes, unable to leave the polar regions. If they were to leave the polar regions, their ghosts would not be able to withstand it, however. Not this time. There was a power in them that had never been there before. With this power, they would not be restricted in any way. Sweep across deep abyss mountain. To invade the entire primordial divine war plane, he had to freeze this plane and make it under his control. He had to make this person, who had betrayed them before, suffer the punishment, and turn this plane into a deathland. Deep abyss mountain was only the first stop. The ancient giant would not spare any human. Although he could temporarily hold on against the onslaught of White Ape King, but he couldn't hold on for too long, and he couldn't hold on to the polar storm either. An hour later. Boom. White Ape King's body was covered in blood. He had turned into a blood-red White Ape King, and his body heavily collapsed to the ground. Ancient Giant stepped on his head, laughed coldly. Do you think you can protect the extreme lands? You want to suppress us? Your ancestors were not even qualified to be my mount. Do you understand? You overconfident beast. He exerted force with his legs and suddenly exploded. Bam! White Ape King's head was stepped into the mud. Ancient Giant laughed coldly and said, "Die slowly, ha ha ha." The laughter faded. The ancient giant disappeared. White Ape King's eyes were wide opened, staring at the side. Snow was flying all over his body. He gradually felt a chill coming from his body. His heart meridian was broken. His mind was shattered. Even his soul origin soul began to separate from him. He's going to die. He did not fulfill the last wishes of his ancestors, and did not stop the ancient giant. The ancient giant was originally unable to leave the extreme lands like them, but why would they be able to leave now? Who was the one helping ancient giant and the rest? There was no time to think about it now. He was going to die. He was going to die soon. Now, he could only hope for his clansmen to live a little longer. He only hoped that Long Fei's brothers could survive. Huff, huff. His breathing grew heavier and heavier. His eyelids became heavier and heavier. He couldn't hold on any longer. His body had already stiffened and was completely numb. Just as his eyelids were about to close, a figure appeared in his field of vision. South of Deep Abyss Mountain, in a bunker. What did you say? Boss, he. Descending Dragon's body sank as he felt pain in his heart. Everyone in the bunker was stunned. Ziyu shook her head and said, it won't, Long Fei will be fine. He has experienced so much and still hasn't been alright, it's impossible for him to be alright now. I don't believe it either. Li Yuanba said, I don't believe it either, but White Ape King is back, boss is now. Ziyu ran out. I want to go find him. I'll definitely be able to find him. He was about to run out of the bunker. The heaven spirit's eyes flickered, quickly stopping Ziyu. You can't leave. The polar storm is already at the south side. Anyone that goes out would instantly freeze to death. I don't care. If I want to find Long Fei, he's definitely still alive. Ziyu couldn't care so much. From the moment she saw Long Fei, she felt that this man wasn't ordinary. He had to find her. At this moment, all the women of Fox race stood up in unison, and said, we want to go as well. We also want to go. The members of the ancient elephant tribe, the fierce tiger tribe, and the demonic wolf tribe all started fighting. Long Fei was their demon emperor. No matter what, even if he died, he had to find the corpse. Descending Dragon looked at Li Yuanba. Li Yuanba's brows knitted tightly. If they were to leave now, everyone would die. They had experienced the cold level of polar storm, even the variant white ape living in the extreme regions couldn't endure it, so the bodies of these demon clan members couldn't endure it even more. If he went out, he would die. The key now was whether or not Long Fei was still alive. Suddenly, Li Yuanba muttered, "Uncle Long once said that Big Brother encountered a calamity, and this calamity happened not in the deep abyss mountain but in the battleground. That means, before Big Brother enters the battleground, nothing will happen to him." Yes, that must be it. And then, Li Yuanba roared out, and said, "No one is allowed to leave. Don't worry, the boss definitely hasn't died, and he definitely won't die this time." Everyone shivered. Li Yuanba's deterrence level was very high. Xie Long held both of his hands together and lightly said, "Amitabha." He wouldn't say it out loud. But Long Fei was truly bitter and bitter. Xie Long sat cross-legged and recited a scripture to pray for Long Fei. The predicted calamity had yet to appear. Before this, although Long Fei would encounter some difficulties, he would always step through them. White Ape King's words could not confirm that Long Fei was dead. Li Yuanba was worried, but he had to calm down Beast's tribes. If they were to leave, not a single one of the Beast's tribes would be left alive. Right now, they could only hide in the bunker and wait. Waiting for Long Fei's return. As they waited, Li Yuanba and the Sky Spirit quickly recovered their bodies. They possessed the undead power in their bodies. This kind of power not only allowed them to live, but also allowed them to have a strong self-recovery ability. It could quickly heal their bodies. In less than half an hour, their wounds had healed and scabbed. His strength had recovered significantly. If the bunker can't take it, the three of us have to take on the task. Li Yuanba, Sky Spirit, and Dragon Subduing Idea communicated with each other. The Holy Spirit said, "That guy knows how to move space. Our Heaven Pillar's power can't deal with him." Their cultivation of Heaven Pillar's power was not strong enough. As long as he moved through space, he would be able to attack. Li Yuanba said, "I will use the Diamond Physique to release the Heaven Pillar's power, and at that time, even if the three pillars' power will not kill them, they will at least be heavily injured, and will not be able to release the Polar Storm's power." The two of them nodded slightly. The Sky Spirit murmured, "I hope Boss comes back soon." Li Yuanba secretly thought, "Boss, come back quickly." The stone fragments from the bunker continued to fall. It continued to freeze. Not even a fire could be lit in the bunker. The polar storm was still ravaging everything. The bunker wouldn't last much longer. The old Granny Fox race muttered, "The original Fox Valley should be starting to move. The Great Earth Plow should be appearing soon. Long Fei, you should be arriving soon, right? Everyone is waiting for you. The king has returned. Thank you for your support." Chapter 2103, Life or Death. Chapter 2103, Life or Death. The cold wind raged, and the snow turned into blades. The moment the polar storm landed on the southern side of Deep Abyss Mountain, it became even more ferocious. Moreover, the polar storm continued to spin. Ancient Giant's goal wasn't just to break through Deep Abyss Mountain's defense line. He also had another goal, which was to turn Deep Abyss Mountain's beasts' tribes into a pile of ice. That was what he had promised. Boom! Ancient Giant stomped his right foot. The earth quaked. The earth ruptured, and a bone-chilling aura crazily extended in. Creak, creak, creak. On top of the bunker, the speed at which the ice formed was visible to the naked eye. Boom! A loud sound echoed out in the distance. One of the bunkers collapsed and hundreds of demons inside were instantly frozen to death. Jiyu Xiong Ancient's expression sank. "It's the White Bear tribe. The Bear King, he." Sigh. Elder Lai who sighed fiercely. The demon wolf said, "The polar storm has been revolving and unable to leave. What are you trying to do? Could it be that they want to kill all of us demi-humans? What? Why is that? We, the spirit demon race, were also the victims of the war for hegemony. Why did those ancient giant legions want to deal with us? Why is that? There was a reason why the storm did not leave. The ancient giant was going to deal with the spirit demon race of the deep abyss mountain. This reason, no one knew. Li Yuanbar's brows were locked tight together, and the injuries on his body had basically healed. Heavenly Spirit Idea transmitted its voice. King Kong, we can't go on like this. The bunker will collapse one by one. If we don't kill that guy, all of the demons will die here. Li Yuanbar also understood in his heart. However, he had yet to think of a way to deal with the ancient giant's spatial transfer. Dragon subdued, at worst, I'll just take it head on. We can't just sit and wait for death, right? Everyone was very anxious. This was because from time to time, bunkers would collapse and the demons hiding inside would instantly freeze to death. In less than half an hour, more than a dozen bunkers collapsed. Moreover, Ancient Legion continued to strike the ground. Boom, boom, boom. A series of booms sounded out again and again, causing people to feel irritated. F***ck. Li Yuanbar shouted loudly, go all out. Immediately, the Sky Soul and the Descending Dragon immediately stood up. Li Yuanbar said, Sister-in-law Ziyu, Brother Han Ba, you will stay here and take care of everyone. The three of us will go out and take care of it. The Jiyu Xiong Ancient immediately said, I'll go with you. Count me in. Me too. I'll go too. Let's go together. Everyone stood up. The Jiyu Xiong Ancient shouted heavily, our beast's tribes has never been so useless before. In the past, when the polar storm came, we were always hiding. We were hiding when the people of Main Temple passed us by. King Demon is right. If you don't accept it, we will do it. Life and death are indifferent. What are you afraid of? Men die and birds die in the sky, and men don't die. It's been tens of thousands of years. Fight, whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large group of demon warrior stood up and shouted, fight. His battle intent was like flames as it crazily soared. This time, Li Yuanbar could not stop it, and he could not stop it either. Li Yuanbar clenched his fists tightly and said, then let's fight. At the same time, Ancient Giant could sense a battle intent rising from the ground not far away. He grinned and sneered, you overestimate your capabilities, you beast. As soon as he finished, he brandished the long sword in his hand. Buzz. In the midst of the huge whirlpool of tornadoes, an incomparably thick huge sword shot out, striking the air above the bunker Li Yuanbar was in. The Sky Spirit opened its eyes and said solemnly, it's here. The Descending Dragon was the first to move. The golden dragon wrapped around its body and turned into a golden light that shot out from the bunker. The golden light flourished and wrapped around the huge sword. Explode. Rumble. The huge sword exploded into ice crystal powder. Boom. Boom. The doors of the bunker opened as Li Yuanbar and the Heavenly Spirit rushed out. One by one, the Ancient Elephant Clan, Fierce Tiger Clan and Warrior of the Demonic Wolf Clan rushed out. Boom, boom, boom. The other doors of the bunker quickly opened as well, letting out sounds of fighting. The variant White Ape also quickly rushed over. All of a sudden, to form a front. Ancient Giant rode on an alien horse, holding a sword, his mouth carrying a disdainful sneer, and said, you're finally willing to crawl out of the dog hole? The Jiyu Xiong Ancient could not help but ask, our beast's tribes has never had any enmity with your Ancient Giant, why are you staring at us like that? Because you are weak. Without the slightest bit of consideration, Ancient Giant started to sneer in disdain. Jiyu Xiong Ancient's face darkened. Elder Lai who said fiercely, damn, even if you were strong, you wouldn't be beaten like a dog. If it weren't for the extreme freezing of your bodies and your vengeful spirits, you all would have turned into a pile of dirt a long time ago. Will it be overthrown? You're courting death. Ancient Giant's eyes turned sinister, filled with anger. Elder Lai whose words were the pain in his heart. This caused him to be in incomparable rage, as if he was tearing open a scar. In an instant, the polar storm turned. He quickly crushed them all down, freezing them all the way. The wind and snow turned into swords. Li Yuanbar looked at his Heavenly Spirit, Dragon Descending. The two of them nodded slightly. And then, The three of them stood in a row. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The great god is angry. The great god is angry. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A huge explosion shook the sky as the deep abyss mountain continued to emit powerful collision sounds. The madness of the demon race. The mighty power of the ancient legion. They quickly intertwined together. The battle between the Earthplow and the polar storm. It formed a huge picture of a war. Don't worry, I will definitely bring your tribesmen back to the polar regions. Long Fei gently rubbed the eyes of the White Ape King with his right hand, and then looked towards the distant south side of the valley. F***CK. It's the main temple again, right? Creak. Long Fei clenched his fists tightly, the anger in his heart overflowing. The White Ape King told him about the ancient giant. Obviously. The ancient giant was definitely supporting him from behind. No matter who was causing trouble, Long Fei would trample him to death. His figure moved. Shua. He soared into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Kill. Li Yuanbar smashed an ancient warrior of the supreme god realm into pieces with his axe. His foot smashed on the skull and his body moved to attack the other person. However, after Li Yuanbar left for half a second, the ancient warrior that he killed recovered and stood up. His cultivation did not decrease at all. They couldn't be killed. These guys can't be killed. King Kong, what's the situation? Why can't we kill him? Holy Spirit, what's going on with these things? If we can't kill him, we can't kill him. What should we do? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The ancient giant sat on the alien's war horse and laughed arrogantly. You think you can stop my ancient army with just trash like you? Ha ha ha. There is no one in this world who can stop my steps. All of you, grind these people into dust. These were the ancient armies of the undead. Not only were they the super warrior of the supreme god realm, they also possessed the body of an undead. No matter how much you attack, it's useless. Even if they were turned into dust, they would be resurrected in a few seconds. This was the power of the undead. It was also a kind of mutated power from the soul controlling and the law of fate. With this power, his ancient army would be invincible. Li Yuanbar tried another method, but it was the same. He was unable to kill the undead warrior. He looked at the sky spirit. The sky spirit couldn't find a way either. Since that was the case, Li Yuanbar's brows tightened, the idea moved, and said, capture the leader first, and kill the big one first. The gazes of the three people shifted. In that instant, boom, boom, boom. The power of the spirit controlling heaven pillar of the Arhat heaven pillar burst out. In an instant, it condensed into the power of a heaven pillar. At this moment, Li Yuanbar's veins popped out all over his body, his expression extremely sinister as he roared out, Vajra body, roar. A loud sound echoed out. The faces of both the man and the dragon changed. This was because at the same time as releasing the heaven pillar's power, his body's endurance had reached its limit. Under such circumstances, releasing the King Kong body would be unbearable. They wouldn't be able to withstand it even if it was the sky spirit. But Li Yuanbar was just like a madman. He completely ignored the pain in his body. This was also the reason why the 7 King Kongs respected him and willingly called him the Great Vajra. Buzz. His entire body was scarlet red. Li Yuanbar, who was inside the King Kong body, was extremely sinister. The heaven pillar's power exploded and crushed down from the power of his King Kong body, and roared, I won't kill you. The space between ancient giant's eyebrows tightened. Seeing the heaven pillar's strength descending from the sky, he had never seen such power, but the golden light enveloped him. Ancient giant gave a cold laugh as he said, what a pity. Your power can't be transferred in an instant. In this instant, ancient giant's figure suddenly disappeared in the golden light. Not again. At this moment, Li Yuanbar laughed innocently, you don't know how to teleport? I can even destroy space itself. Rumble. He smashed down with an impartial blow. Space cracked, and constantly distorted and collapsed. A figure shuttled through the void of black holes. The silhouette of the ancient giant was completely shocked. It was hard to imagine. It was just that with the addition of one more person, the Heaven Pillar's power increased by a lot. Even space itself could be destroyed. Strength critical strike. Explosions continuously sounded in the sky. At the exit of the teleportation gate, Ancient Giant's body was knocked out by a force. Rumble. His body flew several tens of thousands of meters away, causing a towering mountain to collapse from the impact. An incomparably loud sound rang out. Li Yuanbar's body also fell from the sky. The Vajra body had used up all of his energy. His profound chi had been exhausted, and he couldn't even fly anymore. Looking at the mountain crumble in the distance, he thought to himself, I have to kill him. I have to kill him. This was the strongest attack. If they did not kill Ancient Giant, they would no longer have the power to deal with him. The idea of the heavenly spirit released its senses crazily. The dragon looked at him. A smile of excitement appeared on her face as she said, I didn't sense his aura. I'm afraid that he's already. Not waiting for him to finish. A voice came from the top of his head and said coldly, what's the situation now? The sky spirit trembled. He slightly raised his eyes and tightened his mind. At this moment, his 5 fingers formed a claw as he rushed towards the sky and shouted sinisterly, even if we don't die, we will. Ancient Giant did not die. However, his appearance was extremely miserable. The alien warhorse below him had disappeared, his hair was a mess, and his robes were tattered. Although the previous attack didn't kill him, it had heavily injured him. At this moment, the sky spirit chose not to run, but charged forward. The spot between his eyebrows tightened as he shouted, Holy Spirit. In an instant, the descending dragon also rose up from the ground and madly rushed forward. All of you, die! Ancient Giant let out an extremely angry roar, and golden light exploded from his entire body. Streams of golden light formed an incomparably strong sword intent, and pierced down crazily. Cover the entire valley. Ah! Ah! Miserable screams rang out. As long as he touched the golden sword intent, his body would be reduced to smithereens. The number of demons decreased rapidly. The heavenly spirit was pierced through the body before it could even get close. Although his body did not turn into dust, he fell from the sky and all the energy within his body was instantly drained. The dragon moved its body and wanted to attack. It was the same. The sword pierced through his body, then fell down from the skies. Li Yuanbar crawled up with difficulty. The idea moved, giant spirit coffin. However, his power could no longer activate the giant spirit coffin. Looking at the surrounding demons disappearing one by one and dying, Li Yuanbar clenched his fists tightly, which made a cracking sound, but he couldn't do anything. This feeling made him feel incomparable pain. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ancient Giant laughed crazily, all of you have to die, all of you can die now. At this moment, a fire dragon roared as it flew over. C2105. C2105 1 second, remember, pen, interesting pavilion www. bbeak.com, read for free. Chapter 2105 Lousy is not kindly. Ancient Giant's power erupted. The golden sword intent. It contained an extremely strong power. It was simply a pile of ashes, unstoppable. Even the 8 King Kong could not resist it, so how could a demon clan like the 1,000 Goblins tribe withstand it? All of a sudden, there was less than half of them in the 1,000 Demon Valley. The polar storm's power became even more powerful, and completely suppressed the Earth's flow. The storm stirred once again, and a cold and sinister aura covered the entire Deep Abyss Mountain. Everything seemed to be coming to an end. King Kong had been defeated. Beast's tribes was defeated. The variant white ape race lost. Trend of arrival. Inside main temple. The gods all had smiles on their faces. The power that Long Fei had built with his own hands became nothing more than ashes in the blink of an eye. Ha ha ha. This is great. It's far more than that, it's far too satisfying. Let's see how Long Fei can still be so arrogant. What qualifications does he have to challenge us? Fight with our main temple? Was he worthy of it? You still want to break through the ancient entry and enter the battleground, but he doesn't take a piss and look at himself. Right. Where did that brat Long Fei hide? His brother, a woman is about to die, why hasn't he appeared yet? I'm afraid they've already fled. Ha ha ha. The gods laughed. When Long Fei became the demon emperor, the beast's tribes was his power, and upon seeing his power being crushed, the gods couldn't help but be happy. At this moment, one of the gods asked, "It is reasonable to say that these ancient giants can only move about in the extreme lands. They are just ghosts that were wronged and were unable to leave the extreme lands. This is the first time? Will it happen before that? He was a former sovereign, after all. What can happen to him? If worst comes to worst, we can just crush them for a while. How can we be afraid of a defeated opponent? Right now, I really want to get rid of these people from the ancient legion. This is too satisfying, ha ha ha." They did not care what power the ancient giant possessed to leave the extreme lands. Because these ancient giants were defeated by them. Not worried at all. In another place, God's Mountain. Zhong Wushuang glanced at them for a moment, then turned and left. Not long after he left, the black-robed destiny god descended and revealed a sinister smile. "Long Fei, will you survive this time?" In the silver-gray sky, a fire dragon shot out. It was extremely eye-catching in the sky. Standing on top of the fire dragon, white hair like snow, it swayed in the wind. His eyes were cold and filled with a strong killing intent. He held a long saber in his hand, the surface of which was gleaming with the light of a sovereign. The most ferocious was the fire dragon beneath his feet. It was not a dragon, but a ball of flame that writhed in the silvery white sky. It was completely unafraid of the coldness of the polar storm, and was not restricted in any way. What's that? Who is that? Why did a fire dragon appear in the sky? Look, who's that standing on top of the fire dragon? Everyone looked up. The ancient giant turned his head and laughed coldly. "The last time you ran away, and now you are sending yourself to your death, ha ha ha. I was waiting for you." The golden sword intent on ancient giant burst out once again. It blocked half of the sky. At the same time, Long Fei's eyes turned sinister. He shouted out, "Kill my people, hurt my brother. If I don't kill you, I will have your surname. The power of soul. Explode for me." The fire dragon beneath his feet was the soul. Under Long Fei's stimulation, the soul of the little golden dragon that was originally just a thread became wild with fury, as if it had turned into a gigantic fire dragon. Following Long Fei's order, the soul flew into a rage, transforming into countless streaks of flames that crazily spread throughout the sky. Ancient giant sneered and said, "This kind of flame can injure a single hair on my head." He wasn't afraid in the slightest. However, the moment he sneered, the flames of his soul scattered. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As long as these ancient legionnaires lightly touched a single point, they would instantly turn into ashes, just like the golden light that Ancient Giant had released just now. Ancient Giant was the same, disdainful, and coldly laughed, "If no one kills them, they will not die." The power of the undead. Adding on fate and the power of the soul controlling, his ancient legion would never be destroyed. However, Long Fei laughed, "Do you think they have revived? The power of a soul, not to mention an undead, even if it was from his ancestors, could still be purified and burned." At the moment when Ancient Giant was looking down on him, a notification sound frantically rang in Long Fei's mind. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Ancient Warrior for obtaining 1 million experience, 1 million holy power value, and 1 metamorphic energy value. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Ancient Warrior for obtaining 1 million experience points, holy power value of 1 million, and metamorphic energy value of 1 point. The system rumbled like thunder. A crazed sound rang out. The ancient fire soul's damage was simply an explosive display. In just a few seconds, the ancient army of tens of thousands of soldiers was completely reduced to ashes. Not a single one remained. As for Long Fei, experience exploded. His level was also skyrocketing. In a short span of time, he had leveled up by 5 levels, reaching the 9th level of the middle god. Right now, levels were extremely important to Long Fei, and every time they rose, his strength would increase. More importantly, his holy power value was fully recovered. Ninth stage of the middle god. Holy power value full state. Health point full state. At the same time, the ancient fire soul was like a little golden dragon that was intertwined between his right fingers. Long Fei looked at the ancient giant and asked coldly, "Are you still reviving?" In an instant, only the ancient giant remained. Anger. The flames of fury soared to the sky. He had been thinking about revenge in his heart and was filled with killing intent for the past 10 million years. Now, he finally found a chance but was stopped by these 5 brats. What did Long Fei count for? He had never even heard of it. The ancient giant said in a heavy voice, "I want you to die, I want you to die, I want you to die." Killing intent raged. It soared crazily. At the same time, elemental laws of ice. The power of the tempest laws interweaved and condensed within his body. His aura had reached an unprecedented level. As soon as he finished, one step forward, Long Fei's eyes turned sinister as he looked at ancient giant's body that was emitting a golden light. He also roared, "This boss of yours, I'm going to explode." In that instant, the blade of main god in Long Fei's hand moved. The ancient fire soul wrapped itself around it. At the same time, Long Fei locked the center of his brows, his right hand moved and his right arm became a pitch-black color. 3 types of strongest power. Release him. Long Fei did not want to waste time with ancient giant. The gods of Main Temple were looking at him, and the people of God's Mountain were looking at him. What he needed to do now was to ruthlessly ravage and crush ancient giant. Let them know. I am not someone to be trifled with. Explode for me. Chapter 2106, Number 1 Wanted Person. Chapter 2106, Number 1 Wanted Person. The Zero Seal of the Power of Darkness. Ancient Fire Soul. Combined with the super strong power of the Blade of Main God. The 3 forces attacked together. This was Long Fei's strongest power so far. From the very beginning, he did not give the ancient giant the slightest bit of face, and directly beat him to death. 0 seals moved. It was as if all the energy in ancient giant's body had been sucked out. Regardless of whether it was the power of the laws or his own cultivation, all of it crazily surged into the black hole. Long Fei took a step towards Ling Tian. He landed in front of ancient giant and hacked down on his head with the blade of main god in his hand. No divine power. The power of darkness had been released to burn all of his divine power. Right now, he didn't have the slightest bit of divine power, but ancient giant was the same. He didn't have the slightest bit of strength. There was no defense at all. The saber slashed down. Boom. Golden light scattered in all directions, and flames shot up into the sky. Powerful halos of light exploded in the air. Ancient giant's body sank as he fell from midair, roaring, "I am a sovereign, you cannot kill me. You want to kill me with a lame duck like you? Even Hong Tu was unable to kill me back then. Who do you think you are?" Who is Hong Tu? The sovereigns who controlled 100,000 planes. It was just that. Not many people knew this name. When Hong Tu became a sovereign, he was also unable to exterminate the soul of the ancient giant, so he could only throw him in the extreme lands. How powerful was the ancient giant? However, Long Fei didn't know who Hong Tu was from the start, and furthermore, he was him and Long Fei was Long Fei. Even if others could not kill him, that did not mean that he could not. If it was just the blade of main god and hidden strength alone, Long Fei really couldn't kill ancient giant. But now, he owned an ancient fire soul. Let alone the ancient giant, even the souls of his ancestors could be purified. With the swing of the sword just now, the power of the ancient fire soul burst out and burned the ancient giant. Long Fei did not stop. Like a crazed butcher, he viciously slashed down with his blade. Can't we kill him? Can't kill? Try it again, King. Am I to die or not? It was incomparably powerful. A blade and an ancient giant were slashed into pieces. A long gash appeared on the top of his head, causing blood to flow down crazily. On Main Temple, the gods were dumbfounded. He couldn't say a word. They thought that Long Fei had escaped out of fear, but not only did Long Fei not escape, he had also annihilated the entire ancient giant army. Even the person who was once a god was crushed to the ground and unable to move. How fierce was he? The fear in their hearts grew even stronger. Long Fei, this brat is too terrifying. If this brat really wanted to fight to the death with Main Temple, then the moment he entered the battleground, it would be their nightmare. Now, all of the gods were praying for one thing, for the sovereigns to come back as soon as possible. If he didn't come back, then no one could suppress Long Fei. This guy was really going to fly like a dragon in the sky and crush everything. In another place. God's Mountain. Black-robed destiny god's face was ugly, his fists clenched tightly, a cold and gloomy aura burst out from his eyes. Looking at the direction of Deep Abyss Mountain, he gloomily said, "Trash." Unknowingly, Zhong Wushuang had appeared behind him and faintly smiled, saying, "Long Fei won't die that easily." The expression in black-robed destiny god's eyes tightened slightly as he said unhappily, "Do you really hope so much that Long Fei hasn't died?" Zhong Wushuang said, "He is mine, only I can reap his life." Destiny god. I can understand your thoughts of killing Long Fei, but... Zhong Wushuang turned and looked at black-robed destiny god, then laughed, "Those tricks of yours are useless against him. The ancient giant legion is indeed a terrifying army, but they are not weak at all. They are just a bunch of trash who have lost their power. Even if they can suppress Long Fei, they definitely won't be able to harm him." Zhong Wushuang firmly believed in this. Because Long Fei's life must be his. Finished. Zhong Wushuang walked back to the cultivation room, and was not interested in what was happening in Deep Abyss Mountain. However, after Zhong Wushuang left, black-robed destiny god's eyes flashed with a cold light. What Zhong Wushuang had just said was very clear. His every move was monitored by him. He even knew about the matter between him and Ancient Giant, which made black-robed destiny god's heart secretly tighten. Zhong Wushuang's strength had far exceeded his expectations. Moreover, the depth of his growth also exceeded his expectations. No doubt about it. Zhong Wushuang was a genius of martial arts training. This was probably the reason why the sovereign had chosen him to become a scion. His 123 laws had already fused with the power of dozens of laws. If he was given more time, he might really be able to fuse all 123 laws together and become the king of laws. At that time, the expression in black-robed destiny god's eyes tightened and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he revealed a strange smile. And then, black-robed destiny god looked in the direction of the Deep Abyss Mountain, and said coldly, "Long Fei, just you wait, you won't live for long." Deep Abyss Mountain. Looking at the last bit of HP left on Ancient Giant's head, Long Fei held his blade with both of his hands and slashed down. Ancient Giant roared, "No, no, don't kill me. Save me. Save me." His gaze turned in the direction of the God's Mountain, and his voice resounded throughout the entire wild universe, but no one saved him. Long Fei slashed down. The power of the soul burned and completely cleansed the Ancient Giant, leaving not a single bone behind. Rumble. A loud sound echoed out. The system chimed in, "Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Ancient Giant for obtaining 1 billion experience, 1 billion holy power value, and 1 metamorphic energy value. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining the power of the Storm's Law. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Ice Law power. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining High Holy Artifact, Mysterious Ice Sword. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Current level, God Realm level, 1. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up, obtaining a special reward item, Eternal Wheel." The system beep exploded loudly. Long Fei wasn't tired of hearing this feeling, it felt indescribably good. Double laws. Plus a holy artifact. It felt so good. Once he leveled up again, he stepped into the realm of the high gods and recovered his divine power. Long Fei's gaze swept across the sky and met the eyes that were staring at the Deep Abyss Mountain, growling loudly, "Who else? F***CK. I just want to ask, who else is there?" The entire void was silent. Main Temple was completely silent, as if she was being crushed by Long Fei's aura and couldn't even catch a breath. An indescribable pain. A dignified main temple who was in control of 100,000 planes, yet was trampled over by a high god. This left them with no place to put their old face. At the same time, this caused them to feel incomparable rage in their hearts. Long Fei. He was regarded as the #1 wanted criminal by the main temple. Moreover, a bounty was issued. Chapter 2107, Leaving. Chapter 2107, Leaving Main Temple's bounty was extraordinary. The 100,000s were countless. It was not because Main Temple was the most powerful powerhouse, but because there were some mysterious powerhouse that were hiding in their plane of existence. The wanted poster, Long Fei. Those who kill you will be qualified to become a Main Temple, and be granted the power of law. The wanted poster, Embark. Those who kill you get the qualifications to enter the Main Temple, and will enjoy a lifespan of 100,000 years. The wanted poster, Sky Spirit. Those who kill you get the qualifications to enter the Main Temple, and will enjoy a lifespan of 80,000 years. The wanted poster, Descending Dragon. Those who kill you get the qualifications to enter the Main Temple, and will enjoy a lifespan of 80,000 years. Besides these four, the other 5 inscriptions that had yet to appear were also listed on the wanted list. Not only that, as long as it was a person or force that was related to Long Fei, they could immediately obtain benefits from it. The Devil Island was in a precarious situation. Night King Valley was also surrounded. Even the Chaos Realm S that Long Fei had appeared in before, had many powerful forces invading them. This time, Main Temple was completely enraged. He absolutely could not allow Long Fei to grow. Even if he could not kill Long Fei, he had to restrict him at least so that he could not live a peaceful life every day. The wanted poster of the Main Temple. Long Fei, the most wanted criminal. Deep Abyss Mountain. Long Fei was temporarily unaware of the Main Temple's wanted poster. After killing the ancient giant, the polar storm also disappeared. Deep Abyss Mountain returned to normal. In the beasts' tribes' heart, Long Fei had become a godlike existence in their hearts. He had saved the beasts' tribes. He had saved the Deep Abyss Mountain. Not only that, if not for Long Fei, countless people would have died from the cold. Are you sure you won't wait for me to go to the polar regions? Long Fei looked at the variant white ape. There were quite a few brown spots on the variant white ape's body. They were unable to leave the polar region, and with the disappearance of the polar storm, the temperature recovering would become even more unbearable for their bodies. They must return to the polar regions immediately. The variant white ape said, "Sir, we will wait for you in the pole region." Long Fei also did not stop them, and said, "All right." The variant white ape walked a few steps, then turned and asked, "Master, did our leader say anything before he died?" Long Fei laughed and said, "I must bring you all back to the extreme regions, there is nothing else." The variant white ape paused, and after hesitating for a while, said, "Master, I know you are strong, but it would be best if you didn't come to the extreme regions, as ancient entry is unable to connect to it." Finished. The variant white ape turned and left. Actually, the white ape king also said this to him before he died. Ancient entry was a dead end. Can't get in. Furthermore, the power of the Main Temple definitely did not allow anyone to break through the third entrance. No one was able to reach the ancient entry. Even the immortal body of the ancient giant could not be broken through. It was simply impossible for Long Fei to do so. Long Fei's heart tightened slightly as he thought in his heart, "Just what is in ancient entry? Why are you saying that you can't get through?" Although he didn't know. However, the ancient entry must be extremely dangerous. Then, Long Fei walked into the house and looked at the 20 holy artifacts on the table. Earth Plow. Mysterious Ice Sword. We have already gathered 20 of the holy artifact. Why didn't we trigger the main artifact's mission? Long Fei was puzzled. Logically speaking, the mission should have been triggered. What's the situation? All 20 of the holy artifact were collected, but the system did not sound them. Based on Long Fei's gaming experience in his previous life, he might have to trigger some other things in order to complete this quest. In any case, With 20 of the holy artifact in his possession, Long Fei was not afraid that he would not be able to complete the mission. Long Fei did not mind the main artifact mission much, but the rewards given by the system made him feel a little stupefied. Eternal Wheel? After the special reward from the system. Without being mentioned by Long Fei, the Eternal Wheel hung around his neck like a necklace. He flipped it over in his hand. It felt like a pebble, smooth and smooth, but what is this? There was no explanation from the system. He was even more confused. F***CK. System, can you not scam me? At least give me a clear understanding of the attributes of the items you reward. The Eternal Wheel? What the hell is this? Long Fei did not understand. However, the only thing that surprised him was that after the Eternal Wheel was rewarded, the dragon-shaped mark on his right arm started to glow a little, as if it was resonating with him. His intuition told him that this Eternal Wheel might have some sort of relationship with the dragon-shaped mark. After going over it carefully a few times, he still could not find any place to open it, or perhaps the place to activate it could only be abandoned in the end. It's quite cool to have a pebble on your neck. Long Fei could only carry it around like an ornament. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Beast's tribes had basically returned to normal. Li Yuanbar walked into the room and said, "Boss, we're almost done preparing." Long Fei said, "All right, let's leave tonight." Li Yuanbar was slightly taken aback, and said, "You aren't bringing these 1,000 demon warrior with you? After all, if we want to clear the ancient entry, we will need people." Long Fei shook his head, and said, "Ancient entry is very dangerous. Wait until we break through the entrance, and then bring them into the battleground. That will be the time they can display their abilities." Long Fei chose to leave at night also because of this. He didn't want the demons to risk going with him into the polar regions. Just like the Devil Island brothers. Thinking about Devil Island. Long Fei secretly tensed up. "I wonder how they are. Is Wang Tai here yet? I hope everything is safe. Night King." Long Fei quietly walked out of the house. However, outside the house, people were kneeling. "King Demon, bring us along. Hubby, bring us along with you. At least we can serve you on the way. King Demon, we are not afraid of death. Bring us along. Bring us along." At this time, Li Yuanbar and the rest walked out, and shook their heads, indicating that they did not know what was going on. Long Fei said, "You are my clansman, and also my warrior. Each and every one of you are my, Long Fei's, most powerful forces, so I need your strength. But, not now. It's inside the battleground. Before I open the ancient entry, I hope that each and every one of you will be stronger than you are right now. After I enter the battleground, I need your strength to help me crush everything." All right. The Jiyu Xiong Ancient wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally, he said solemnly, "Master, please do not worry, we will definitely become stronger." Definitely. All of them knew that Long Fei did not bring them into the extreme for their benefit. Long Fei looked at each and every one of them, and muttered in his heart, "After this time, they will definitely become incomparably strong. Battleground. I need to prepare everything." Chapter 2108, Dragon Gate Inn. Chapter 2108, Dragon Gate Inn. Ha ha ha. Boss, your reward is actually going to directly become the god of law that controls 100,000 planes. This has broken the history. This is the first time that the main temple has issued such a high wanted poster. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect that I could be wanted. Another 10 days passed. The news of the wanted poster had spread throughout the entire primordial divine war plane. Even Long Fei and the others who were on the way to the north knew about it. Ziyu glared at them. "What are you all so happy about? Don't you know how dangerous this is? This means that the entire 100,000 powerhouses want your lives. You all are still laughing?" Hearing Ziyu's words, Long Fei withdrew his smile. Li Yuanbar scratched his bald head and said naively, "Sis, don't be angry, we just thought it was fun." "Fun? Is it fun to be wanted? You guys are strong, you've killed God of Law, and you've trampled him to death, but so what? Even if you are any stronger, can you fight with the powerhouse of 100,000 planes?" Ziyu said angrily. She was the one who worried the most. She thought that Long Fei would also be worried about the wanted poster. After all, he was going to become enemies with the entire 100,000 planes. However, not only was Long Fei not worried, he even smiled. She was speechless. Li Yuanba said, "That's great, my dream is to defeat all the experts in the world, hey. Even if all the powerhouse from the 100,000 planes were to come, I wouldn't have to go and look for them. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. It's just as I thought." And then, the three King Kong laughed again. Ziyu's face darkened. Long Fei immediately glared at them, and the three of them stopped laughing. Han Ba slightly said, "Main Temple has issued a wanted poster, so it can be seen that your reputation has been flourishing for a while now, and the gods of Main Temple are starting to fear you. Right now, what they are most afraid of is you opening up the third entrance to the ancient entry. That way, you will be extraordinary. As long as you do not regret it, Main Temple will join your side. At that time, Battleground will be the true place for the game. However," Han Ba continued, "before you clear the way to ancient entry, you will be considered fat in the eyes of the 100,000 planar powerhouse, and everyone will want to take a bite. I think there will be a lot of trouble on our way to the extreme Earth this time." Li Yuanba shouted, "What are you afraid of? Whoever dares to touch the boss will be killed by me. I'll make sure he doesn't even have a ghost seat," the celestial spirit said with a grin. Amitabha. The dragon's subduing palm came into contact with each other. Amitabha. Long Fei laughed. He didn't care about it. He wasn't worried about anything. However, he was more worried about the Devil Island. Even after leaving for so long, he still did not know the current situation of Devil Island. He became a god in the Devil Island. If anything were to happen to Devil Island, his cultivation would be affected. In the Night King Valley, Long Fei's heart tensed up, and thought, "Looks like I have to open the ancient entry a bit faster." The heavenly spirit looked into the distance and muttered, "Did I see an illusion? Why would there be an inn in this world of ice and snow?" Everyone looked over. At the foot of a mountain, there was indeed an inn. Li Yuanba immediately said, "It can't be that someone has come to deal with us, right? Ranked in the divine class with 100,000 years of longevity. Who doesn't want that? Maybe he really is here to deal with us. There is a problem with opening an inn in such a cold environment." Everyone was discussing. Long Fei asked, "Are you guys cold? Are you hungry?" Everyone nodded their heads in unison. How could it not be cold in this world of ice and snow? It was not like Long Fei, who could not feel even the slightest bit of coldness when he had ancient fire soul on his body. Long Fei laughed. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go in for a drink, eat some meat, and warm up before we go." Ziyu pulled Long Fei back, saying, "What if he came to deal with you?" Long Fei replied, "What's there to be afraid of? I'll take care of everything." The snow was falling heavily and the ground was covered with a thick layer of dust. Everyone's cultivation base was not bad, they could fly in the sky. However, at the edge of the polar region, the magnetic field was chaotic and it was impossible to determine the direction. It would take them at least a year to reach the polar region if they flew, let alone find the ancient entry. Long Fei and the others could only follow the marks left behind by the variant white ape and search for it. The six of them walked in front of the inn. Long Fei looked at the signboard above his head and smiled. The name of this inn. Interesting. The name of the inn was Dragon Gate Inn, which made Long Fei feel that it was similar to a movie from his previous life. It was now under the snow-capped mountain of the icy cave. "I'll go in and scout first." Li Yuanba carried his thick giant spirit coffin and quickly walked in. It was cold and deserted outside the inn, and the wind was howling in the wind. However, it was warm inside the inn. There were more than a dozen tables in the inn, and they were filled with people. Seeing the door open, Li Yuanba walked in. The noise in the inn suddenly stopped. They all looked at Li Yuanba, paused for a few seconds, then retracted their gaze and continued to argue. "Waiter!" Li Yuanba shouted. The waiter walked forward with a smile and asked, "Dear guests, how many of you are there? Do you want to stay or eat?" Li Yuanba swept a glance across the entire hall, and said, 6 people, eat, and stay in the inn." The waiter immediately said, "Esteemed customer, I'm really sorry. There's still room for me to eat. If you were to stay here, the restaurant would already be full." Li Yuanbar scratched his head. "It's fine, then let's eat first. Welcome to the good wine and dishes." The waiter quickly ran out and said, "Yes, sir." At this moment, Long Fei and the rest entered the tavern. This time, they did not look at Long Fei. The noise did not stop, but it was still just that. A girl on the second floor was waving a fan. She was wearing revealing clothes, and her two eyes were even more captivating than the girls in Fox Race. Her charming gaze could practically hook out a person's soul. A hot body. Half of her breasts were revealed, making one salivate. She lightly waved her fan, and stared straight at Long Fei. Long Fei also looked at her. Ziyu viciously looked at Long Fei's arm, causing him to grimace in pain. "I was just looking, it's not like I made any mistakes." Ziyu huffed, "We can't just watch and see. Women are born jealous." The pretty girl upstairs smiled charmingly and teased, "Looks like you're still a good wife." At this time, the men downstairs saw the woman on the second floor and immediately said, "Lady boss, I'm not a wife." "Lady boss, please warm my bed tonight. The price is up to you." "Lady boss, accompany me for a night, I'll give you my life." How is it to be able to see such a beautiful young woman in this world of ice and snow? It was simply a beautiful scenery. At this moment, the woman's body moved gracefully as she slowly walked down the stairs. Her twisting body, alluring eyes, and long, slender legs were all visible under the thin silk, reaching her roots. Quite a number of people instantly had faces glowing red, causing blood veins to spew out names. There was a strong reaction. The woman had a charming smile on her face as she directly walked towards Long Fei. "Thank you for your support." Ziyu didn't care about that much and shouted, "He's my man." Finished. Ziyu felt that something was amiss. Her cheeks flushed red as she looked at Long Fei with the corner of her eyes. Long Fei smiled. The lady boss smiled. "Is he your man?" No wonder he was so nervous. "However, little girl, there isn't a cat in this world that doesn't cheat. Now that they're your men, they might become someone else's tomorrow, right?" While they were talking, the lady boss gave Long Fei a flirtatious glance. "Perhaps he will become my man that day." Finished. The lady boss turned around and slowly walked up the stairs while twisting her waist like a water snake. All the men in the tavern raised their heads to look. They were all incomparably hungry, and many of them had their Adam's apple rolling in their mouths as they gulped down their saliva. There were even some who whistled. Long Fei stared at the lady boss's waist for a few times. He could not help but admit that her waist could definitely take a person's life. Ziyu glared at Long Fei and sat down angrily. Long Fei slightly smiled, then sat down and said, "When did I become your man?" Ziyu's face became even redder. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't speak. Long Fei took another step forward and said, "Otherwise, become your man at night." Ziyu's face was so red that it could drip water, not daring to look up at Long Fei. Even though she liked Long Fei, she was still a girl in her early 20s. Suddenly, Ziyu's expression changed slightly as if she had heard something. She immediately said in a low voice, "This is a black shop." And then, she looked at Li Yuanbar. Li Yuanbar scratched his head and said, "Sister-in-law, why are you looking at me like that?" Ziyu didn't say anything. At this time, the waiter walked up while carrying a big basket of steamed buns. He said, "We have just gotten the hot meat buns out of the kitchen. Customer, our store only has steamed buns that are most delicious." Li Yuanbar said excitedly, "Me likes to eat meat buns." As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to grab it without even bothering to heat it up. A fragrant smell assaulted his nostrils. "Amitabha, take one of those as well." Ziyu picked up her chopsticks and hit their hands, then said with a smile, "Waiter, we're eating today, so we don't need meat buns. Just give us some warm steamed buns." Upon saying that, Long Fei was shocked in his heart. "Damn, don't tell me that you really want all of the performances at the Dragon Gate in to be human meat buns." The waiter didn't mind and carried the steamed buns back. He said, "Then you guys wait a bit longer." Ziyu looked at Long Fei and said, "There's a problem with the bun." Long Fei asked, "Human meat buns?" Ziyu nodded at Long Fei and said, "There's something wrong with this shop. I just heard them say that they want to make the big guy into a meat bun." Her special talent was the heavens listening technique. From the moment she stepped into the inn, she had never stopped eavesdropping on all the conversations. The conversation in the kitchen was the same. Li Yuanba was startled, and said, "Damn, Heaven's spirit and dragon subduing laughed, who told you to train your muscles to such an extent? And you like being naked? If you don't eat your meat, whose meat do you eat?" Li Yuanba was very unhappy in his heart. "Let's see who has the ability to put me down." At this time, a middle-aged man walked up from the corner. He was thin, and he looked like a poor scholar. In his hand was a roasted lamb leg. He walked in front of Long Fei and said, "I still have a lamb leg to eat. If you don't mind, I'll take it to eat." While they were talking, the man drank the wine in one gulp. He looked a little drunk. Long Fei smiled faintly and said, "You're welcome." Right after the man approached Long Fei, there were many pairs of eyes staring at him from inside the tavern. The middle-aged man said, "What's there to be polite about? It's just a lamb leg." With that, he threw it onto the table. After throwing the pill, he walked away. After taking 3 steps, the man suddenly turned around, and his expression changed to a sinister expression. "You're mine now. Ha ha ha." Long Fei said in shock, "Why am I yours? Could it be that you are a gay?" The middle-aged man laughed excitedly. "Brat, you've all been poisoned, now. All of you are mine now, ha ha ha." Li Yuanba suddenly stood up and angrily shouted, "Be poisoned by your sister's poison." As soon as he finished, he hacked down with the axe, but at this moment, his body went limp and he fell onto the ground. Chapter 21:10 Carnage of Flowers. Chapter 21:10 Carnage of Flowers. Bam! The heavy body directly broke the chair. Seeing this, the middle-aged man could not help but smile. "Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Great Vaja Li Yuanba, once I take your head, I will be able to enter the main temple and enjoy a lifespan of 80,000 years." Li Yuanba shook his head, all the power in his body moved. He wanted to stand up, but it was as if all the strength in his body had been drained and could not be released at all. Li Yuanba looked at Long Fei, and immediately said, "Boss, I have really been poisoned." Everyone's expression changed slightly. Ziyu slightly condensed her energy, her body becoming weak, and almost couldn't endure it any longer. She held the table with one hand and looked at Long Fei. Han Ba. Descending dragons were the same as heavenly spirits. All of the strength in his body had disappeared, leaving him unable to muster up even the slightest bit of strength. Seeing them laughing like this, the middle-aged man said, "What demon emperor, what possessor of the laws, what Vaja dogshit, what Long Fei, in front of this poison king, they are all trash, ha ha ha." Long Fei said indifferently, "If you hand over the antidote now, you might still be alive." The middle-aged man laughed disdainfully. "Long Fei, what are you trying to do? Do you know what poison you are infected with? The silkworm disperse." As soon as he finished, the entire tavern shook slightly. Silkworm powder? The nether silkworm is specially refined to absorb the profound chi of humans. The power of the seal people themselves, this kind of silkworm is extremely terrifying. This poison. Everyone was shocked. The middle-aged man laughed complacently. "The silkworm disperse is made from 1,000,000 nether silkworms. Just now, you were poisoned without a sound. Is Long Fei afraid?" He was extremely pleased with himself. He had absolute confidence in the poison that had spread throughout his body. In the absence of any precaution, even a god possessing the laws would find it hard to resist. However, the middle-aged man didn't think that they would be able to take down Long Fei's group of 6 so easily. Long Fei said indifferently, "Before, I would usually give people 3 chances, but seeing that you are so proud, I will give you a chance. Hand over the antidote, and you'll still be able to live." The middle-aged man sneered, "You are now an ant in my hands, do you understand?" Before he could finish, Long Fei's figure moved and slapped down. In an instant, he sat back down. Pa. The middle-aged man fell to the ground as his body flipped over and his head smashed into the ground. Blood spurted out of his head as his body spasmed crazily and his eyes dimmed. Long Fei said coldly, "I already said, I will only give you a chance." The middle-aged man's lips trembled as he said, "You dare to kill me? You guys have been poisoned. Without my antidote, you guys can't even think about." Not waiting for him to finish, Li Yuanba stood up from the ground with a relaxed expression, and laughed simple-mindedly. "Don't think about it, huh? What the hell? What the hell?" The celestial spirit laughed. "I thought we were poisoned." Dragon subduing said, "Why don't you see where we're from? Nether silkworm? They came from hell." Long Fei turned his right hand, and took out a black silkworm that was as big as his thumb, and asked, "Is this what you call a silkworm?" "Paji." It exploded under the pressure. The middle-aged man's eyes stared straight ahead. So it was just an act just now. Just to tease him. Actually. Not all. The main reason was that Long Fei wanted to see how many people in the tavern could not hold themselves back and wanted to kill him. Visible. These people were definitely not ordinary people. Moreover, when they heard the middle-aged man say Long Fei's name, they were not surprised at all. It was obvious that they were here for him. However, it was not time to make a move yet. The hole in the middle-aged man's forehead had all been used up, and a system announcement sounded out in Long Fei's mind. Long Fei swept his gaze across the entire audience. Li Yuanba threw the middle-aged man out as he opened the door. He clapped his hands and said with disdain, "You're courting death." Everyone was stunned again. With a smile, she replied, "Seems like they're not fooled." Long Fei smiled and said, "It's all right, we have plenty of time to slowly play." At this moment, Ziyu looked at Long Fei powerlessly and said, I can't do it anymore." Long Fei's gaze tensed up. Ziyu's complexion was incomparably pale, her lips were purple, and her entire body was trembling. "What's going on?" Long Fei frowned. It was very obvious that he had grabbed the silkworm just now when the middle-aged man had poisoned the silkworm. However, Long Fei's gaze tightened, and swept the area with his cold eyes. "Who?" His words were filled with anger. No one in the tavern spoke. He had been poisoned without a sound, and only Ziyu had been poisoned. Long Fei recalled that the only person who had come into contact with Ziyu was the lady boss. In that instant, Long Fei moved, sure. He jumped straight to the second floor. He rushed into a room. A scream sounded out from the room, "He's going to die. Even when he changes his clothes, he peeks at me." In the room, Long Fei grabbed the throat of the lady boss and pushed her against the wall, saying coldly, "Hand over the antidote, and I'll spare your life." His eyes were ice cold. There was no room for negotiation. The lady boss didn't seem to be afraid even though she was pressed against the wall. Instead, she had a flirtatious expression. "She's just a chick. What does she know? Look at me, I can give you endless happiness." While they were talking, the lady boss's foot moved across Long Fei's chest. She had a charming look on her face. He intentionally lowered the chest to expose his good looks. This charm. To others, it might be difficult to resist. However, Foxwoman's method of seducing the soul was not any weaker than the lady boss's. With the strength of his fingers, it was as if he had nailed the lady boss to a wall, as he solemnly said, "I will say it again, hand over the antidote." The lady boss's facial expression changed drastically. Unable to breathe, he said, "If it wasn't for the poison, where did I get the antidote?" "No." Long Fei glared at him angrily as he exerted force with his fingers. Crack. His neck was directly snapped in half, ruthlessly destroying the flower. Without the slightest bit of procrastination, the lady boss's body fell off the wall, and a stream of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Long Fei did not spare him another glance as he turned and jumped down the stairs. In the room, the lady boss's body slowly shriveled as if she was leaking air. In the end, all that was left was a thin layer of human skin, and it was even the skin of an old lady. It was extremely ugly. "Damn it. You actually destroyed one of my clones. Neat. Little bastard, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. In the dark." A woman who looked exactly the same as the lady boss stomped her foot in anger with an ugly expression on her face. Long Fei carried Ziyu and flew into a room on the second floor. He placed her on the bed and said softly, "I'll help you circulate your energy to force the poison out. Don't be distracted." Chapter 21:11 For the sake of the main artifact, I have to kill you too. Chapter 21:11 For the sake of the main artifact, I have to kill you too. This was also the plot that Long Fei had seen in the movies. Would it succeed? Is there any effect? He really didn't know. However, since it was of no use, he wanted to give it a try. After he sat Ziyu down cross-legged, Long Fei hesitated for a moment. In the movies, clothes are always taken off. Do you want to take them off? I don't care. Long Fei took off Ziyu's clothes, leaving only her undergarments. Ziyu's body was also revealed in front of Long Fei's eyes. It could be said that it was much hotter than the lady boss's. Long Fei was dumbstruck. Huff! Long Fei exhaled slightly, his heart sank, and shouted, "Yuan Ba, protector." Li Yuanba stepped on the ground, flew to the second floor, and stood in front of Long Fei's door. Long Fei calmed himself down and then activated the idea. The idea transmitted into Ziyu's sea of consciousness, "Don't move recklessly, I'll help you force out the poison." And then, Long Fei's aura of a high god moved. Buzz! A droning sound filled his body as he gathered power and channeled it into his right palm. With a slight movement of his palm, he placed it against Ziyu's chest. A thick energy began to frantically enter Ziyu's body. Ziyu's body trembled slightly as she emitted a woo sound from her throat. Her entire body was very gentle. After Long Fei carried Ziyu into the room to circulate the power of the poison, the atmosphere in the tavern was not as rowdy as before. Instead, it had turned quiet. Everyone was looking at the Sky Soul and Dragon subduing fist. The atmosphere was a little tense. There was a sense of tension in the air. The heavenly spirit's gaze was locked onto him as he released his aura to cover the entire inn, not sparing even the slightest hint of his aura. If anyone were to make the first move, he would be the first to sense it. "The hot steamed buns are here." The waiter appeared again. He placed the steamed bun on the table and revealed a smile. "Dear guest, it will not taste so good if it gets cold while it's still warm." Descending Dragon slightly raised his eyes. Suddenly, "Be careful." He saw the waiter flip his right hand and stab at the top of his head. A bright light flashed. A blinding light burst out from the waiter's body, causing him to become extremely vicious. The blade swept out, locking the celestial spirit in the throat. The sky spirit glared and shouted, "You're courting death." Yi Zichen slapped the waiter with his right hand and kicked the table, causing the table to flip over and attack the waiter. Crash! The table split. A blade stabbed out. However, the figure of the heaven's spirit disappeared. Just as the waiter was hesitating, a figure landed behind him without a sound. The figure said coldly, "Are you looking for me?" It was incomparably cold. A cold sweat broke out on the waiter's forehead. The moment he turned around, the figure of the sky spirit moved and pierced through the air. Shua! The body of the waiter quickly stiffened and turned into dead wood before finally peeling off and turning into ashes. The eyes of the sky spirit became sinister as it stared at the other chef who had rushed out of the kitchen. It said coldly, "Die." The spirit energy in his body moved. Buzz! Suddenly, two skeletal hands stretched out from the ground and grabbed the cook's feet. Plop! It crashed to the ground. The Holy Spirit descended once again, and both hands formed into claws as it reached down. The chef's body instantly turned into ashes and turned into a pile of dead wood. Sinister and ruthless. Venomous. This was the ghost meridian technique of the sky spirit. Moreover, in this situation, he had to use ruthless means. The entire tavern was silent. Everyone's eyes turned cold as they all listened to the heavenly spirit. Suddenly, a man stood up and lightly said, "Yuling Guardian Warrior, you are neither human nor ghost, not demon nor demon. I would actually like to see if you are such a neither human nor ghost, not demon or demon." His voice sank. The man disappeared. An enormous pressure was like a raging tide that rolled towards the sea of consciousness of the sky spirit. He was completely domineering in the Tao of the sword. The heavenly spirit was not particularly strong, and was only in the middle god realm. In terms of cultivation level, he was at a disadvantage. However, the heavenly spirit smiled and said, pressuring? Humph. Just a tiny bit. It's not even enough to fill the gaps in my teeth. The sky spirit laughed sinisterly. Not waiting for the man to rush out of thin air, the sky spirit transformed into a ball of ghost fire and charged into the air. It grabbed the man's collar and smashed him onto the ground. Rumble. The ground cracked and the entire inn shook. Poochie. Blood sprayed wildly. The man's face was pale as he stared at the top of his head. Without waiting for him to finish, the heavenly spirit stomped down, directly crushing the man's head. He coldly smiled and said, "Who else wants to come up and try? You want to get the main temple's bounty? Just you guys. Are you worthy?" The sky spirit disdained it. The 8 King Kong had never been cowardly, it had always been them bullying others. Since you've already explained it, there's no need for us to hide. Everyone in the tavern stood up in unison. He left his seat and walked to the Sky Soul. You are right, we are all here for the main temple's reward. Everyone wants to be part of the divine class and receive tens of thousands of years of lifespan. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourselves. It's not good to go against someone, but you have to go against the main temple. What nonsense are you talking about? Let's attack together. Is treating that woman anyway, so he definitely won't be able to drag her out for a while, and someone is handling it. Our target is the 3 Great King Kong. Everyone moved one step further. The heavenly spirit realm, dragon subduing Han Ba was surrounded in the middle. These people were all at the high god level and were quite powerful. Heaven spirit and descending dragon smiled, and said, "You've been holding it in for a long time, right? If you don't go, we'll all be bored to death. So many high god powerhouses perfect. It's enough for us to practice." The heavenly spirit said to Li Yuanbar on the 2nd floor, "Great Vaja, you can be at ease and protect boss. Leave them to me, hey." If Li Yuanbar wasn't there, they would have been able to play for a while. Li Yuanbar grinned and reminded them, "Be careful, these people aren't easy to mess with." He did not move. Even if the sky spirit was in danger, he would not move about so recklessly. Long Fei was treating Ziyu's injuries, so before Long Fei came out, he would definitely not allow anyone to enter the room. "Kill." A large man shouted in a deep voice. Then, all the crowd charged forward. The sky spirit sneered sinisterly, "Come." Inside the tavern, the beating was so quick that it couldn't be done. In the room, Long Fei tried a few times and realized that he was completely useless. Damn, it's all lies in the movies, it's completely useless. Or was my method wrong? Long Fei was puzzled. Although he didn't force the poison out of Ziyu's body, it still protected Ziyu's heart veins so that she would be fine for now. His eyes opened slightly. A golden light pierced his eyes. Long Fei's mind shook. Boss radiance. Long Fei was very familiar with this kind of golden light. It was the golden light emitted by the boss body. Boss. Long Fei's eyes moved as he looked at a man standing in the room. Beside the man stood a woman dressed in revealing clothes, exposing her bones. This woman was the lady boss who had just broken his neck. Long Fei frowned. The lady boss laughed and said, "Little brat, we meet again." The corner of Long Fei's mouth slightly hooked up. "He didn't die?" The lady boss laughed. "Even if you die, I won't. Don't worry, today I will let you die happily." Long Fei looked at the man and said, "Relying on him?" Long Fei's current cultivation was divinity. The person in front of him was definitely not a simple person. If he could become the system's boss, then he was definitely not a simple person. At least, reaching the level of being able to control a law god. Moreover, the room had become different as well. It was no longer the room Long Fei had just entered. This was a special space. The man laughed blandly. "Long Fei, you should accept your fate. Main Temple wants your life, you can't escape." Calm and collected. The aura of the man was extraordinary. Moreover, How could the lady boss revive him? Long Fei did not know what had happened, but if someone wanted his life, he would kill them first. Moreover, this man had a very special aura around him. 20 of his space ring were moving. Obviously, he had what Long Fei wanted. It was a good thing that could fuse 20 pieces of holy artifact into main artifact. Long Fei smiled faintly. I will only give you one chance. Forget it. I won't give you the chance. Because I have to kill you. For the sake of the main artifact, I have to kill you too. Thank you for your support. Chapter 21:12 Main Artifact, Donghuang Clock. Chapter 21:12 Main Artifact, Donghuang Clock. Long Fei did not know what kind of boss that man was. However, he only needed to be clear that this guy was a boss. As soon as he finished, Long Fei did not think too much about it. It was just that. At this moment, the man laughed coldly in disdain, and said, Long Fei, if you still move, she'll immediately die. Just as Long Fei's aura surged, black blood suddenly flowed out from the corner of Ziyu's mouth. Ziyu's originally controlled injuries instantly collapsed, and her face paled. The man laughed coldly, Long Fei, I know you are very strong. Even Main Temple S would not be able to deal with you, but everyone knows your weakness. If you dare to move, your woman will die instantly. The man understood Long Fei very well. Long Fei's weakness was the people around him. Long Fei's eyes slightly tightened, and said, You know me very well? The man laughed. Of course, if I don't understand you, how would I dare to deal with you? From the bounty missions given by the main temple, it can be seen how strong you are. However, his bounty is too tempting. To be placed in the divine class, increasing 100,000 years of life, this is something any powerhouse would want. Long Fei, you can only blame yourself for your bad luck, you asked for it yourself. Long Fei, you can only blame for your bad fate, you asked for it yourself. They talked a lot. Long Fei replied coldly, Since you understand me, then you should know that the thing that I, Long Fei, hate the most is other people threatening me. As soon as he finished speaking, Long Fei withdrew his hidden strength. The idea moved and roared out in its heart, ultimate boxing. Ding. Target locked. Without saying a word, he shot it out in an instant. It all happened in less than a second. It could be said that it was all of a sudden. It was as fast as lightning. The man's pupils suddenly contracted. He wanted to defend, but his movements were too slow. Rumble. 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 A violent explosion came out as the man's head was bleeding. Long Fei's blasting fist was instantly killed. Long Fei coldly continued, I hate people who use the people by my side to threaten me the most. It was extremely cold. Killing intent soared to the heavens. Also at this moment, the system beep sounded out. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Huan Yunkong for obtaining 10 million experience points, 10 million holy power value, and 1 metamorphic energy value. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining the purple cloud space. 2 notifications. There was no sound. Long Fei was startled for a moment, then muttered, Eh? That's not right, the 20 holy artifact should have triggered the main artifact's mission. Why is there no reaction? Or should I say, Long Fei moved. Release your metamorphic energy value. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining ancient purple cloud sky. With this freakish value of spiritual energy, the violet clouds instantly transformed, becoming a vast expanse of sky. Also under this sky, 20 of Long Fei's space ring-s began to move. With a move of Long Fei's idea, all 20 of the holy artifact began to fly into the purple cloud sky, refining and fusing with each other, forming strands of divine light energy that was also filled with bloodfiend energy. It was the demons, it was the gods. No one could understand it. As expected, Long Fei secretly thought in his heart as he watched the holy artifact on the 20 pieces disappear and condense. A huge amount of energy continued to circulate within the holy artifact. The power interweaved, and every single energy was different with different attributes. They gathered in the ancient violet cloud sky. The moment it was formed, the system sounded out. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for completing the main artifact's mission. Ding! Congratulations to the player Long Fei for obtaining the Dong Huang clock asterisk. As soon as he finished, a gigantic golden yellow bell floated in Long Fei's mind, sparkling. The power contained within it was beyond imagination and was much higher than the level of the main artifact's blade. Dong Huang clock, the treasure of the Great Wastelands world. However, the Dong Huang clock that the system rewarded was different from those in the Wasteland world. The Dong Huang clock that the system rewarded was at the main artifact level, and it was countless times more powerful than those in the Wasteland world. Item: Dong Huang clock level, 5 stars, main artifact. Damage. Attack. Description: possessing a sovereign's voice, able to absorb and refine a person's soul and spirit. Description: possesses the power of a devil, instantly becoming a devil. Transforming into a Dong Huang clock and activating the bloodthirsty mode. Description: passive defense activated. The bell has rung and he has died. Looking at the system's description, many Long Fei could not really understand. However, there was no need to know who he was talking about. Right now, he needed to know one thing: this Dong Huang clock was extremely ferocious. Another main artifact appeared. The sky shook violently. The 100,000 planes all trembled slightly. This time, the shaking was even more intense than the last time the blade of main god was born. Even the dust in the main temple fell as stone fragments rolled down. All the gods in the main temple trembled. Another main artifact has appeared. Who is it this time? What is it? Yet another surge of power that is bound to us by a transcendent sovereign. The 100,000 planes that we are in control of are becoming increasingly unstable. What is it? On God's mountain. The space between black-robed destiny gods' brows tightened, another transcendent divine might exploded, forming a main artifact. Who could it be? Is it Long Fei? If it's him. Black-robed destiny god's eyes flashed with coldness. The stronger Long Fei was, the more unhappy he got. Aside from the main temple the sovereign Hong Tu who was rushing back to the 100,000 plane had also astonishingly stopped. His forehead tightened. How dare you? Within my control, a force that surpassed my control continuously appeared. Long Fei, I definitely won't let you run rampant on my territory. Sure. With a single thought, he rushed over. Hong Tu sped up. He felt that the danger in the 100,000 planes was getting bigger and bigger, and if he couldn't control Long Fei in time, the 100,000 planes would really be overthrown. The main temple that he had created with his own hands would really be trampled underfoot by Long Fei, and he would absolutely not allow this to happen. Absolutely not. Hong Tu quickly shuttled back and forth, getting closer and closer to the 100,000 planes. Dragon Gate in. Long Fei retracted his gaze, looked at the lady boss who was shivering at the side, and coldly asked, "Do you have the antidote?" The lady boss's face was as pale as paper. She thought that this man could deal with Long Fei, but she was completely wrong. Long Fei killed her boss instantly. This power, even if she transformed 10 more times, it would still be useless. The lady boss shook her head. No, no, no. Only Huan Yuntian knows about the poison. I don't have the antidote. No antidote. That meant Ziyu was dead. Chapter 2113 Mutated Dragon Blood, Universal Antidote. Chapter 2113 Mutated Dragon Blood, Universal Antidote. There was no antidote. Right now, Ziyu could only just barely protect her heart. Moreover, this was only temporary suppression. Long Fei looked at the corpse of Huan Yuntian on the ground and muttered, "Even the antidote has not been found. Could it be that there is no antidote?" The lady boss said, "Sir, there really is no antidote for this poison." She knelt on the ground and trembled, not daring to move as she spoke carefully. She was truly afraid of Long Fei now. Long Fei moved his body and entered the huge dragon's space. He shouted, "Giant dragon, come out right now." The colossal dragon raised its body slightly, and its gigantic dragon head appeared from within the clouds in the sky. It stared straight at Long Fei and shouted, "What are you arguing about?" Long Fei said, "Give me the antidote pill." The huge dragon rolled his eyes at Long Fei, and directly said, "No." It was very straightforward. Long Fei said, "I need it urgently. If you can give me a detoxification pill, I can promise to speed up my cultivation." Seeing Long Fei's anxious expression, the huge dragon knew that Long Fei had met with trouble, but he found it funny and said, "You're poisoned?" Long Fei replied, "My woman." "Oh." The colossal dragon disdainfully said, "In this plane, do you know that dragon blood is the universal antidote?" Dragon blood? Long Fei's eyes lit up. He stared straight at the place where the big artery of the dragon was located. The colossal dragon slightly retracted his body and immediately said angrily, "You want my dragon blood? If you have the guts, come up and try." Immediately, Long Fei was impotent. Although the colossal dragon had not attacked, but once this guy made his move, it could be said that he could instantly kill 10,000 of the current Long Fei. Moreover, one sneeze is enough. It was the guardian of the dragon coffin. How strong is it? There was no way to measure it. It was just a single sentence, the strongest of them all. Looking at Long Fei's dejected expression, the colossal dragon disdainfully said, "The purest dragon blood in the world is on you, and you even want my dragon blood." It was not loud. And when he spoke, the colossal dragon had already returned to the sky. But Long Fei heard it very clearly. "Thank you." Long Fei was overjoyed. With a move of the idea, he instantly left the dragon coffin's cultivation world and walked to Ziyu's side. With a move of his finger, he condensed a drop of blood essence. The lady boss was still kneeling on the side, watching Long Fei give Ziyu the blood essence, feeling even more stupefied. A drop of vital blood fell from the corner of Ziyu's mouth and fell onto the bed. Long Fei condensed another drop of his blood essence and dripped it into Ziyu's mouth. Next, Ziyu's body shook violently and a red light appeared. It was as if her entire body was enveloped by a tremendous power. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Wave after wave of force was released. The entire room was enveloped. Long Fei was secretly shocked as he thought in his heart, "Damn, to think that my blood essence is actually this powerful again." Long Fei didn't even know what the blood vein flowing in his body was. He still did not know what the ancient dragon palace signified. What did the ancient Mu clan mean? Right now, he only knew that the Long residents and the Mu clan were the ancient family S. He didn't know how strong the two families were or how strong the mutated blood vein they combined were. Blood essence entered his body. Ziyu's body underwent a crazy transformation. The poison that had attacked her heart meridian was instantly annihilated, causing his cultivation to skyrocket. One breakthrough after another. Each burst of energy was more explosive than the last. That feeling. Ziyu felt an indescribable sense of comfort. In just half a minute, Ziyu opened her eyes. It was as if a cloud was floating on her body, light as a feather. There was an unparalleled power in her body. This power. Ziyu bit her lips, looked at Long Fei in disbelief, and said, "A high god peak realm, my cultivation, have reached the level of a high god peak realm. I. He was so excited that he was at a loss for words. Long Fei was also confused. He scratched his head and thought to himself, "Damn, my blood essence is only that strong, to continuously break through more than 10 levels. This is too freaking abnormal. Abnormal dragon blood." Ziyu looked at Long Fei with a face full of incredulity. "Am I dreaming? What did you give me earlier?" Long Fei smiled faintly and said, "It's nothing, it's just a medicinal pellet. I didn't think that the poison in your body would have such a huge change, allowing you to break through quickly. This is your opportunity." What he did not convince was his blood essence. Ziyu couldn't believe it and muttered, "Is there such a magical pill?" Long Fei was secretly happy in his heart, and said, "I never thought that my blood essence would actually have such great power. If it's like this, in the future, I can make those people from the Long family, grandfather, and Liu Luoshi all become stronger. Hey, my blood essence." Long Fei muttered in his heart. He began to faintly realize that the blood vein was unusual. Long Fei said, You go out first and help Yuan Ba and the others. We'll also try out your peak high god strength. Ziyu looked at the lady boss who was kneeling on the ground, then looked at Long Fei, and said, "All right." Yi Zichen came out of the room. He instantly attacked the restaurant. When Li Yuanba saw Ziyu kill his way down, he knew that the poison had already been forced into his body. "Ha ha ha. My hands are itchy. Let me do it now." Li Yuanba went berserk. In the room, Long Fei moved, once again entering the dragon coffin cultivation system. "Giant dragon, what's going on with my blood essence? Why is there so much energy? My blood vein. Isn't that the dragon blood vein?" The colossal dragon stuck his head out and said, "Go and search for it yourself. I am too lazy to tell you. Just tell me how to hit myself." And then, the colossal dragon disappeared. After half a second, the colossal dragon stuck its head out again and said, "Brat, don't go back on your promise to me. You must complete all the training tasks. Your black box can only be opened by my blood essence, do you understand?" As if afraid Long Fei would not enter the training space to complete his mission. If not for the dragon's words, Long Fei would have already forgotten about it. The black box given by the evil god required dragon blood to open, so there was a high chance that there was a hidden gobbledygook inside. The dragon said so. This also meant that Long Fei's own blood could open the black box. However, Long Fei did not plan to open it. Firstly, he wanted the evil god to continue to monitor him and give him an illusion. Also, the power of the gobbledygook could not be unleashed from the 100,000 planes. The star book was also good. No matter if it was Holy Buddha gobbledygookess, they would not be able to unleash the strength that they should have. This was because 100,000 planes was too low, and with Long Fei's current cultivation, he couldn't fully activate the gobbledygook's power. The stage for gobbledygookess was the universal large world. Long Fei moved and returned to reality. The lady boss stared at the drop of blood on the bed that Long Fei accidentally dropped, her eyes almost popping out. Long Fei said slightly, "You want to eat it?" The lady boss couldn't help but nod. Long Fei said, "Will you listen to me in the future?" The lady boss immediately said, "Master." Long Fei said, "Go." Chapter 21:14, The Sovereign. Chapter 21:14, The Sovereign. As soon as he finished, the lady boss almost pounced on him as she frantically sucked the drop of blood on the bed. Even the straw mat was about to be swallowed. She had seen with her own eyes just how strong Long Fei's blood essence was. She had never seen such power before. Long Fei wanted to know if a certain amount of refined blood would cause an earth-shattering change to Ziyu, or if it would cause a strong change to others as well. Buzz. In that instant, the lady boss's body also glowed red. It leaked out in waves. In the red light, Long Fei clearly saw her original appearance. It was a white snake. It was her real body. As the white snake transformed, long tentacles grew out from the top of its head. It was transforming into a flood dragon. Not only that, the strength in her body was also going through a crazy mutation, with an unstoppable momentum. Every second was getting stronger. Half a minute passed. The white snake's cultivation had also reached the high god peak realm. The moment she retracted her aura, the red light disappeared. The lady boss's body became even hotter. Her skin looked completely new and white. There were no flaws on her body at all. Especially that waist. It would definitely take a person's life. The lady boss touched her own face, then looked at Long Fei's face filled with excitement. She directly knelt in front of Long Fei and said, "Thank you, my lord, for fulfilling my wish." He was extremely grateful. Long Fei was also very surprised. He smiled at the lady boss and said, "Do you know how to repay this?" The lady boss immediately said, "This servant understands." After he finished speaking, he stood up and helped Long Fei to undo his clothes. "Sister-in-law is so mighty. In just half an hour, your cultivation has undergone a shocking change. I've already reached the high god peak realm. This is a blessing in disguise." The three King Kong all said with envy. Ziyu was incomparably happy as well. Not only did the peak level of a high god increase her strength tremendously, the most important part was that her heaven listening technique had become even more powerful. Only one thing. She heard the dissonant voice from Long Fei's room. Although she knew what Long Fei was going to do when she left, her heaven listening technique still felt a little uncomfortable in its heart when it heard all of this. Increase his strength. Ziyu was also going slightly crazy. The more he used the power of a peak stage high god to vent, the more ferocious the battle became. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a manly woman. You scum. You want to take our lives? Not a single one that can fight. An hour passed. There was no sound from the first floor of the pub. They were all knocked down. The sound on the second floor also gradually died down. The lady boss helped Long Fei put on his clothes, and with a blush on her face, she said, "Master, are you satisfied with my service?" Long Fei smiled, looked at his blushing face and said, "Very satisfied." He had to say it. The lady boss was different from an ordinary girl. She could totally let things go, and give you a look. She would understand what she was trying to do. This was enjoyment. Long Fei pushed open the door and walked out. Seeing that Li Yuanba and the others could not see Ziyu, he asked, "Where's Ziyu?" Li Yuanba scratched his head. Eldest sister-in-law went out to patrol. She said that the air inside was too foul. The lady boss's body trembled, but she didn't dare to say anything. She was well aware of her status. Compared to Ziyu, she didn't even have the qualifications to compete. Long Fei exhaled, sigh. Jealous. The heavens listening technique is really troublesome. The lady boss said, "Sir, I will prepare some food for you." After which, he quickly left. Li Yuanba walked over and said, "Boss is indeed worthy of being the boss. No woman can escape, ha ha ha. If I were a woman, I'd fall in love with the boss, too." The sky spirit laughed. Xia Long clasped his hands together. Amitabha, this monk will not be able to hold it in. Long Fei had a unique aura about him. This technique could not help but attract women. It was a powerful aura. The unique aura of a dragon. In a certain aspect, the dragon was abnormally strong. Women, on the other hand, had a sensitive attraction towards this strong aspect. In the 100,000 planes, countless women were attracted to Long Fei, and every woman who approached him was attracted to him. This was his charm. Of course. This was inseparable from his strength. Not long later, Ziyu was carrying a few wild chickens on her back as she walked into the tavern. She glanced at Long Fei angrily before walking into the kitchen. Li Yuanba laughed naively and said, "Boss, this is because I know you worked hard just now, so I have to heal your body." Ha ha ha. Souls and dragons laughed. Long Fei rolled his eyes and glared at them, and the three of them immediately stopped. Tell me about what happened next. Once the main temple's bounty is released, there will definitely be many more assassins on the way. Long Fei slowly said, he did not want what happened today to happen again. If it wasn't for the fact that his blood essence could save her, Ziyu would already be dead. Li Yuanba said, "What are you afraid of? Let's kill one each, let's kill a pair." Exactly. Today's fight was quite fun, but not exciting enough. All of them were at the high god level, powerhouse without any law gods. Ha ha ha. 8 King Kong were all battle maniacs. There was one that could be used for a meal. They were not worried about how many killers and powerhouse came. Long Fei looked at their excited expressions and laughed faintly, then said seriously, "Main Temple has issued a bounty mission to us, and a mission to the other 5 King Kong. Your 8 King Kong is one, you can sense each other's existence, so I want the 3 of you to go find the 5 of them." Li Yuanba was startled, looked at Long Fei and asked, "Boss, what about you?" Long Fei said, "I'm going to the extreme regions by myself." "No way." Just as Long Fei finished speaking, Ziyu walked out with the dishes and immediately said, "It's too dangerous." The sky spirit added, "Yes, boss is too dangerous. Not to mention how dangerous these extreme regions are, just these unending stream of killers is hard to deal with. If the main temple sends out a few more divine lore experts, it will be even more dangerous." Long Fei said, "It's exactly because it's too dangerous that I want you to find the other 5 King Kong, and then go to the Devil Island to protect Devil Island for me. Main Temple will definitely not let you off. I will reunite with you once I open the ancient entry. These people weren't very strong this time. However, this was only the beginning. The powerhouse was still behind. Long Fei was better off alone. He could run or hide, and he did not have any worries at all. Li Yuanba was silent for a moment. He understood Long Fei the best, and knew what Long Fei was thinking in his heart. Long Fei looked at Ziyu and said, Be good, be good. If you guys are going to take this route, bring the people of the Night King Valley along with you, along with the demons of the Deep Abyss Mountain. The Devil Island is my place to become a god. The billions of lives on the Devil Island are the foundation for me to become a god. If they crumble, my cultivation will also be affected greatly. The Devil Island was Long Fei's base. When Long Fei went to the extreme regions, the main temple would definitely use the Devil Island as a tool. Long Fei needed someone to protect that place. Long Fei had now fused with the time laws. The killing principle, the sky principle, in addition to the storm and the ice laws, the 5 powers of the laws allowed him to sense things that he normally would not be able to sense. Instinct told him. The sovereign was about to return. He definitely had to open up the ancient entry before the sovereign returned to his position. Only then would he have the qualifications to compete with the sovereign. Thank you for your support. Chapter 21:15 Entering the Polar Regions. Chapter 21:15 Entering the Polar Regions. One person, without a shred of worry. One man, Blade Mountain Flame Sea Guild, did not have a shred of scruples. The main temple's bounty on him was secondary. Now that he had grasped 5 types of code power, he wasn't even afraid of 17 or 18 code gods. However, the ancient entry was different. The evil god said that the ancient entry was unreachable. White Ape King had also said that this was a dead end. In here. Why did the ancient giant want to forget everything and try to get as far away as possible? Escape from the polar regions? This also proved that the ancient entry could not be reached. This was a dead end. However, to defeat the main temple, to defeat the strongest boss in 100,000 dimensions, entering the battleground was the only way, and the ancient entry was the only entrance. No matter how difficult it was, Long Fei had to enter. He had to take down the 3rd entrance. At the entrance of the Dragon Gate Inn, Long Fei reminded them, You must find the other 5 King Kong. You are one body. Here it is. Return to the Devil Island, and wait for news from me. If I don't connect to the ancient entry, you can escape if you can, and return to hell if you can't. By my father's side, he will definitely have a way for you to break past the 100,000 planes. Long Fei smiled slightly. This was a narrow escape from death. He didn't know what he would encounter along the way, or what kind of powerhouse he would encounter. Right now, the only thing he could do was to let his brothers live on, and bear all the suffering alone. Li Yuanba said heavily, Boss, don't worry. We will definitely find the other brothers. Li Yuanba also wanted to follow Long Fei. However, their strength was not strong enough. They, the 8 King Kong, were one entity. If they wanted to unleash their King Kong and Heaven Pillar's powers, they had to find 8 people. Only by fusing the power of 8 people could it form an extremely powerful force. Ziyu held back her tears and said, Long Fei, you have to be careful by yourself. Long Fei laughed, and said, Don't worry, I will be fine. Finished. Long Fei looked at the lady boss, and said, You go with them. The lady boss gently nodded her head. Long Fei walked with large strides into the snow, and half a minute later, he disappeared into the dusky world. Li Yuanba turned and looked at the rest of the people, saying, It's time for us to leave as well. We will pretend to be the boss to distract the main temple. Ice and snow. No night. The silver-white world seemed to have frozen over. Half a month later. Huff. Long Fei looked at the glacier world that was not far away and exhaled a breath of hot air. During this half a month, Long Fei did not encounter any killers. Because of the ancient fire soul, Long Fei didn't feel a trace of cold at all, and his entire body felt warm. Even if he met the polar storm, he wouldn't be cold now. The ancient fire soul was from the Kiara realm and on this plane. Was it actually an ancient inheritance from the universal large world? Long Fei was also unable to explain it clearly. After all, he had never entered the universal large world before, but he was certain of one thing. He felt that this soul was the fire ancestor. I wonder how is Yuan Ba and the rest are doing? Long Fei muttered, and immediately started to head towards the extreme regions. A few minutes later, Long Fei stepped onto the glacier. Shua. As the cold wind blew past, streams of incomparably thick frost came face to face, and were instantly melted by the ancient fire soul on Long Fei's body. Even peak stage high god powerhouse probably won't be able to hold on for long. It was indescribably cold. Just as Long Fei stepped onto the polar glacier. Roar. A roar. Next. An incomparably large white ape roared as it stood at the peak of the glacier and let out a roar. And then, hundreds of variant white ape rushed out of the glacier. These were all members of the White Ape King. Variant White Ape Race. After the last battle with the ancient giant, only 1/10 of the 1,000 or so variant white ape remained. When Deep Abyss Mountain saw them, many of them were covered with brown streaks. They were furry now and their fur was pure white like silver. My lord. The leading white ape had already become the new White Ape King. Although it wasn't as strong as the previous him, it was obvious that the surrounding white ape were especially respectful to him. Long Fei replied, This is the polar region. Leader of White Ape nodded. This is the polar region, this is the polar region of the glacier, and further in is the polar region of the ice plains. Any further and it will be the dark polar region. The ancient entry you are looking for is in the extreme darkness. While they were talking, Leader of White Ape looked at the darkness in the distance. Long Fei also took the opportunity to look at the distant sky. His surroundings were completely silvery white, but his place was also dark, as though he was in a state of chaos. The Dark Pole? Long Fei repeated. The leader of White Ape said, Legend has it that the ancient entry is located in the extreme darkness. However, no one has ever been able to enter the extreme darkness, and no one has ever been able to leave it. Lord, you. Long Fei interrupted him with a smile and said, Since you're here, I'll definitely go take a look. He knew what the leader of White Ape was going to say. The extreme darkness was extremely dangerous, but since he had come, he had to go take a look. The leader of White Ape didn't say anything more and said, Okay, then you can rest for a day. I'll bring you there tomorrow. Long Fei said, Give me a map or indicate the route, I should be able to find it. Leader of White Ape said, Master, you have saved our White Ape tribe, it is our honor to lead you. Furthermore, we are not the same as you in the human world, so any living being here can take your life. They are the natives of the polar regions. They knew a lot of things. Long Fei also stopped arguing. Inside the cave, Leader of White Ape was worried that Long Fei would feel cold and bring a special type of fuel to the cave. It was like a flame that emitted a strange heat, causing the entire cave to be extremely warm. Long Fei sat cross-legged, and the idea moved. And then, entering the world of dragon coffin cultivation. Alchemy mode. The martial arts training mission and the refining mission were completed, but there were still many tasks that were not completed. Alchemy mission. A mission was drawn. Charm mission. A series of missions had to be completed. In this half a month, Long Fei did not relax either. As long as he stopped, he would immediately enter the training space to cultivate crazily. He had to do what he had promised the dragon. Ding. Alchemy failure. Ding. Alchemy failure. Ding. Alchemy failure. The system once again issued out a sound of failure. Every failure would allow Long Fei to summarize it, and he was one step closer to success. God's Mountain. Zhong Wushuang clasped his hands behind his back, looked in the direction of the extreme lands, and said slightly, Have you come? Black Robe Destiny God said, I'm here. Zhong Wushuang laughed coldly, and said, It's time for me to go on stage, hey. Chapter 21:16, Golden White Bear King. Chapter 21:16, Golden White Bear King. Ding. Alchemy failure. Ding. Alchemy failure. Long Fei continued to ring again and again, with no intention of stopping. The system's massacre now did not pose any threat to him at all. This also caused his fearless heart to become even more determined, like a boulder, and not moving at all. His temperament became stronger. The reason the dragon coffin cultivation mode appeared was for Long Fei to cultivate, and also to hone his character and temper his fearless heart. Huff! Long Fei was once again killed by the system as he let out a long breath. Rub. A full night of failure. Long Fei stood up and walked out of the cave. The cave was surrounded by variant white ape guards. When they saw Long Fei, they immediately bowed and said respectfully, "Master." Long Fei was a little doubtful, and said, "Isn't this the variant white ape's territory? Why do you still have to stand guard? This place is indeed our territory, but ever since our last return, our white ape tribe has suffered a great loss. The previous clan leader perished, so our position is immediately at the very bottom, and in addition to that." Saying this, the white ape guard hesitated for a moment and looked straight at Long Fei. At this time, leader of white ape coughed lightly. The white ape guard immediately shut his mouth and did not say any more. Although he did not continue, Long Fei felt that it had something to do with him. Polar region. Humans were rarely seen in the cold. Similarly, this was the world of the polar regions, and they did not allow any humans to enter here. Just like the Deep Abyss Mountains demon race, they hated humans. Any species that had connections with humans would be suppressed and despised by other races in the polar regions. Leader of White Ape walked up and greeted him. "Sir." Long Fei asked, "Did something happen to White Ape tribe?" Leader of White Ape said, "Nothing. Master, I've already packed everything up. We can set off now." Long Fei's eyes turned cold, and she said faintly, "Get some pointers?" Leader of White Ape was startled for a moment, and immediately said, "What I meant was that I had explained it to my family." "Oh." Long Fei nodded. He did not voice his suspicions. Half an hour later, Leader of White Ape brought over 10 strong variant White Ape and protected Long Fei in the middle, while also blocking their view. Leader of White Ape was at the front. The group of people headed towards the polar ice place. Nothing happened during the day. However, Long Fei could tell from Leader of White Ape's expression that he was very worried and had been maintaining a high vigilance. No matter how Long Fei moved, he was always surrounded by these variant White Ape. It was as if she wanted to block him. Not to block his line of sight, but to block the line of sight of others. A night's rest. Long Fei continued to practice in the Dragon Coffin S training mode. Towards the doubt in his heart, he did not ask, and Leader of White Ape would not tell either. The next day, it was still the same as the day before, with Long Fei in the middle as the Leader of White Ape leading the way. However, this Leader of White Ape walked even more carefully, and his expression was even more worried. Suddenly, shua, a figure descended from the skies. Countless pieces of ice were splashed into the air, and each piece of ice shot out like a sharp arrow. "Ha ha ha. White Ape, where are you guys going?" A huge bear. His entire body was covered in thick armor, and there were several deep scars on his head. This was a war beast. To be exact, it should be a war beast that escaped from the battlefield. Leader of White Ape frowned and shouted, "Do you even need to care where I go?" "Ha ha ha. Of course I don't care where you go, but..." The white bear's gaze darkened. It used its forelimbs to support itself as its gigantic body flew up and crashed down towards the White Ape guards behind Leader of White Ape. Suddenly using force, Leader of White Ape tensed up. He turned around and moved. His body also rushed out. In that instant, he grabbed the white bear's hind leg and bellowed angrily, "Scram, rumble." The void split apart as the white bear was pulled back. When Long Fei saw this, he was shocked in his heart. All the beasts in the extreme regions were like monsters, and his magic rule was completely useless against the demon beast here. Hiss. The bear moved its claws and sliced open the ice mountain. However, its body didn't fall to the ground. Instead, it landed steadily on the ground. He looked at the Leader of White Ape and asked, "White Ape, you dare to attack me?" Leader of White Ape shouted fearlessly, "So what if I make a move against you?" And it was you who started it. Humph. This is the territory of our white bear tribe. If you want to enter the ice plains from here, you have to let me inspect it. What if you bring a human and enter the ice plains? The white bear stared at the group of white ape guards. White ape said, I let you inspect. By Xiong, even if your white bear clan's clan leader comes, he still doesn't have the qualifications to say such words. When will our white ape tribe allow you to inspect? Heh. His aura was not weak. What big words you have there. At this moment, the surrounding glacier were slightly moved. From the cracks of several holes in the ice, powerful and tall white bears appeared. These white bears were covered in thick armor, and their bodies emitted a ruthless aura. The number of white apes was 10 times more than the number of guards. The center of leader of white ape's brows tightened. He stared at a white bear covered in golden armor and asked solemnly, White Bear King, what is the meaning of this? White Bear King walked out and said, It's nothing. I just wanted to see what your white ape tribe is doing. Leader of white ape said, The thing that you promised me the day before yesterday. White Bear King grinned, Are you talking about giving up our territory to let me pass? Ha ha ha. White ape, do you think your current white ape tribe is the same as before? 1,000 kilometers of territory? Tempach, you think I'm a beggar? Only your white ape tribe's territory, as long as I am willing, can be occupied at any time and drive your white ape tribe out of the extreme lands. Arrogant and domineering. He did not even put leader of white ape in his eyes. Indeed. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. It was the same everywhere. The same is true of the polar regions. The white ape tribe was once powerful, but now, they had been driven to the edge of the polar region. However, what Long Fei did not expect was that the leader of white ape would actually take out his territory and let the white bear clan through, and his heart felt slightly grateful. White Ape King's death had dealt too much of a blow to her. Leader of white ape said, White Bear King, you cannot go back on your words. Humph. The White Bear King snorted and said, My White Bear King has no problem with that. Today, as long as you let me inspect you once, if there is nothing else, I will immediately let you go. But if there are humans amongst you, then don't blame my white bear tribe for being impolite. Without waiting for leader of white ape to speak, White Bear King ordered, Search. Chapter 21:17, The Might of a Dong Huang Clock. Chapter 21:17, The Might of a Dong Huang Clock. Leader of white ape was also not someone to be trifled with. Seeing that several white bear warriors had surrounded him, he immediately let out a loud shout and said, Let's see who dares. Ha! The dozen or so variant white ape let out a loud shout. Taking out all of their big hammers, like spears, their bodies quickly formed a circle surrounding Long Fei. The atmosphere was tense. White Bear King's eyes turned sinister as he said solemnly, White Ape, you aren't really hiding humans amongst you. You need to know the rules of the extreme lands. If you break the rules, you know what the consequences will be. White Bear King stared at leader of white ape. Human beings have no good thing. No matter what race you are not allowed to have any relation with humans. I do not care what happened in Deep Abyss Mountain, but this is the extreme lands. If you are related to humans, then do not blame me for not remembering our old friendship. It was because the white ape tribe was connected to the humans in the Deep Abyss Mountain that they were oppressed in the extreme lands. The leader of white ape's expression turned sinister as he said, I am naturally clear about the rules of the extreme regions. There is no need for you to remind me. White Bear King, just tell me if you want to give way today. White ape tribe owed Long Fei. From the moment Long Fei appeared in the extreme earth, the leader of white ape had already made all the preparations. No matter what the price, they would risk everything to protect Long Fei. Just like how Long Fei fought for them with his life. Humans were indeed despicable. However, not all humans were cunning and despicable. White Bear King's eyes darkened as he shouted, White Ape, you're playing with fire and burning it to ashes. At this moment. Hiss, 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 hiss. A huge ice python appeared. It was 100 meters long with ice horns on its head and silver scales all over its body that flashed with a cold light. It let out a long snake's tongue and shouted, Why are you talking to him? I have already sensed the aura of a human from them. At this time, the Ice Wolf pack also came out from the other side. The Wolf King shouted, "Since he is adamant on not realizing his mistake, then we will not be polite. This is the Extreme Lands, and we are the world we control. Time to speak." Polar races appeared one after another. It surrounded the white ape-s so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. He had fallen into a death trap. White Bear King said, "White Ape, you still have a choice. As long as you hand over that human, you will have nothing to do here. This is your last chance. What kind of opportunity are you giving me? If you want me to say that the relationship between the White Ape tribe and the human race is unclear, we can just directly kill it." Exactly. Humans don't have any good things. Kill him. Leader of White Ape looked at the White Ape guards behind him. He knew clearly in his heart, as long as he handed Long Fei over, Long Fei would definitely die. The hatred the polar variant demons had for humans was not in the slightest. It was a grudge that had accumulated for tens of millions of years. These races used to be human beasts, but after the war for hegemony ended, they were abandoned and left to fend for themselves in this polar region. In the icy world, their hearts were frozen as well. The resentment against humanity never subsided, only grew deeper and deeper. White Ape tribe was the same. However, Long Fei saved them. Moreover, to a certain extent, the thing that Long Fei obtained the protection of the White Ape tribe was from a noble person within the White Ape tribe. The White Ape's gaze tensed up as it looked at the glacier world not far away and said, "Lord, not far ahead is Polar Ice Place. If they enter the Polar Ice Place, they will not dare to enter." So, suddenly, leader of White Ape roared, and said with all his might, "White Ape tribe, make way." With that, the leader of White Ape rushed out with unbridled power. "You're courting death. You overestimate yourself. Do you really think you can turn the world upside down?" The instant leader of White Ape made his move, his expression darkened and he icily said one word, "Kill." The surrounding mutated beasts from the polar regions began to attack from all sides. Variant White Apes rushed forward one after another. "Master, let's go. My lord, let's go. My lord." They did not hesitate. Their White Ape tribe would definitely repay this kindness. Many White Ape warriors rushed out, and Long Fei's figure was revealed. White Bear King's gaze tensed up. He really is a human. "White Ape, are you stupid? You're dead today." White Bear King roared, and immediately rushed out. When the many polar races saw Long Fei's figure, they also exploded with incomparable hatred. The humans wouldn't let any of them off. Long Fei's gaze tensed up. He did not leave immediately. Looking at the White Ape warrior fighting for him, his heart ached slightly. Then, Long Fei's eyes turned sinister as he released his 5 powers of the ancient code. Buzz, 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 buzz. 5 violent humming sounds could be heard, forming a strong power of law. The laws of time and space, the killing principle, the sky principle, the laws of storm, and the power of the ice laws formed an incomparably strong pressure, directly smashing down like the might of the heavens. Rumble. With a huge bang, everything within a kilometer of was suppressed by the might of the 5 laws. He couldn't move. White Bear King's face sank, and shouted with difficulty, "White Ape, look at what kind of human you have brought here." "Ah!" White Bear King roared out, and all of the golden armor on his body swelled up. With a sound that was like a wave, it shattered the pressure Long Fei released. His body suddenly stood up. It was like a huge building. The bear palm was like a mountain, striking towards Long Fei. "Go and die." Leader of White Ape leapt heavily into the air, his huge body blocking against White Bear King's palm. Bam! His body was directly sent flying. An enormous iceberg collapsed. White Bear King's gaze tensed up, and he struck his palm towards Long Fei again. This palm strike was even stronger. As Long Fei watched leader of White Ape fly away from the blow, the rage in his heart also exploded. He shouted out in a dark voice, "You're F*** king courting death." In that instant, Long Fei turned his right hand. Buzz. A crimson-red bell rose from his palm. Main artifact, Donghuang clock. Anger. The Donghuang clock would reveal a different color to the anger in Long Fei's heart. Infuriated, he was like a demon. The devil was crimson-red. An enormous bell rose from Long Fei's palm, directly enveloping one side of the sky and enveloping all the surrounding land beasts. At this moment, the S were like ants. Streaks of crimson-red light burst out from the Donghuang clock. How domineering was the might of a main artifact. The entire polar ice was shaking. On God's mountain. Zhong Wushuang slightly narrowed his eyes. As expected, he refined the main artifact. Humph. Long Fei, you have also become stronger. Interesting. That's more like it, ha ha ha. Zhong Wushuang laughed wildly. Long Fei stared at White Bear King, and said solemnly, all of you must die. Thank you for your support. Chapter 21:18, Closer and Closer to Death. Chapter 21:18, Closer and Closer to Death. Long Fei bellowed. The 5-star main artifact began to emit a thunderous roar. It was like the roar of a ferocious beast. Streaks of scarlet-red flames shot out and revolved around the Donghuang clock. Soul fire. Destroy everything. White Bear King's eyes darkened. All the mutated beasts in the surrounding polar regions started to sweat profusely. The strength of the Donghuang clock had completely crushed them, and even their hearts were trembling. They trembled even more as they stared at the soul fire. Just as Long Fei was about to release the soul flame, the leader of White Ape, who was sent flying by the White Bear King, rushed up and knelt in front of Long Fei. Master, please spare them. As soon as he finished speaking, all the surrounding beasts were shocked. Just a moment ago, they were still thinking about taking leader of White Ape's life, but now they were pleading for them. Long Fei was also slightly shocked. The leader of White Ape continued, we, the Arctic tribe, have been abandoned by humans before. Our hatred for humans has never weakened, and anyone who enters this place will die, including us, the White Ape tribe. However, ever since we met you, you saved our White Ape tribe, letting us know that not all humans are like what we imagined. People are also divided into good people and bad people. Please let them go. White Bear King let out a deep shout, and said, White Ape, what kind of bewitching soup did humans actually give to drink? What good person or bad person? Humans have no good people. Back then, we worked hard for them, risked our lives for them, and abandoned our noble bloodline to become their mount. What about them? They thought that we would fight with them for the land under the heavens, and that we would just directly dismount and kill them. They threw us into this extreme region and that we would never be able to leave for the rest of our lives. Humans don't have any good things. Even if he dies today, I won't let him surrender. White Bear King was abnormally irritable. Even though he was being crushed by Long Fei's Donghuang clock, he was not afraid. His hatred of humans was deep in his bones. Long Fei glanced at White Bear King, and then coldly swept his eyes across the place and said, who else thinks the same way as him? Who else wants to die? Long Fei's words were also filled with killing intent. Immediately, me too, me too, me too. While they were talking, one by one, the beast races solemnly declared that they would rather die standing than live kneeling. They had been hurt once, and it was enough for them to remember it in their hearts. Even after 10 million years, they had not changed one bit. Hatred was hatred. Finally, most of the other members of the extreme beast race stood up. None of them were afraid. Long Fei trembled slightly, and laughed coldly, all of you have guts. Fine, then all of you can die. His voice sank. The soul flame on the Donghuang clock began to shoot out crazily, falling down like a rain of fire from the sky. This damage. This attack was simply incomparable. No beast could withstand it. White Bear King's eyes were gloomy, his body was as motionless as a mountain. He shouted out, come, if there is a next life, I will definitely kill all human. Ah! The sound waves were like waves as he roared furiously. The sound echoed out for 10,000 kilometers. While they all thought that they were going to die, the soul flames did not descend. After a long time, White Bear King felt that it was a little strange. He opened his eyes slightly and looked towards Long Fei's direction, only to realize that Long Fei had already disappeared on the spot. The Dong Huang clock that was stomping on top of their heads had also disappeared. What's going on? Weren't we all going to die just now? What about that human? What happened? In that instant, they had all been waiting with their eyes closed for death's door to descend. They could not withstand the power, but they did not expect that Long Fei did not plan to kill them. Leader of White Ape said solemnly, "Thank you, sir." White Bear King looked at Leader of White Ape and furrowed his brows. Why didn't he attack us? He could have killed us. He really didn't understand. The Leader of White Ape said, "He is the human who killed the ancient legion and the person who killed the ancient giant. He is also the only human in the 100,000 planes who dares to go against the main temple. He wants to overthrow the main temple." He had said it before. However, no one believed him. White Bear King looked in the direction of the polar ice place and muttered, "Is there really anyone who dares to fight against the main temple?" All the beast races were looking in the direction of the polar ice place. Leader of White Ape slightly said, "I really hope that he can open up ancient entry. If that's the case, I'm willing to be the first one to lead. Is it your turn? My White Bear King is going to be the first vanguard. I want to make those hypocrites who abandoned us tremble." White Bear King's golden armor shook and let out a huge buzzing sound. However, could the ancient entry open it? No one could do it. Polar ice place. Long Fei's current level had not reached the High God Peak realm. He still needed experience. However, Long Fei did not kill them, not because of Leader of White Ape's request. Instead, it was because these beast men were very tough. Very hard. No matter what, this world should have a few more of these people. Huff. Woo, woo, asterisk whoosh. Polar ice place. It was like a huge mirror, with no end in sight. According to the Leader of White Ape, as long as one passed through the polar ice place, they would be able to enter the terminal, which was the darkness zone. The ancient entry was right in the middle of this dark area. Huff. Long Fei exhaled a breath of hot air as the idea moved, wings of the sky. Shua. The sky principle was released. At this moment, the power of the sky principle was like the flickering flame of a candle, slowly weakening before extinguishing. Huh. I can't release the power of law here. Long Fei trembled slightly, and immediately after, he released the power of the ice and storms law, just like the sky principle, which slowly weakened before finally disappearing. Why is that? I can't use the power of law here. Long Fei was too lazy to think about it. He had a lot of power, and since he couldn't use the power of the ancient code, he might as well use another power. Wings of the demon. Shua. Long Fei's back grew a pair of fleshy wings. This was something that he did not even use when he had gotten his hands on too many sinister-looking people in holy Buddhahood. Now that there was no one around, Long Fei summoned his wings of demon and flapped it a few times. It felt good. It was at least faster than walking. Long Fei waved his wings and walked towards the depths of polar ice place. On God's mountain. Black Robe Destiny God reported, he has already entered the polar ice place. It's getting closer and closer to us. The power of the ancient code twined around Zhong Wushuang's body one after another, and his entire body was wrapped up by it. 123% of the power of the ancient code was forcibly fused together. Now, he could be said to be the true king of laws, an incomparably powerful existence. Zhong Wushuang looked into the distance and laughed sinisterly. Long Fei, you're getting closer and closer to death. Chapter 21:19 Myriad Demons Breaking Dawn. Chapter 21:19 Myriad Demons Breaking Dawn. Polar ice place was as far as the eye could see. Long Fei didn't know whether he was walking in the right direction or not. Here, Long Fei did not even see a single living being. In the sky and on the ground, there were no living beings. Without even a blade of grass, this place was like a desolate ice world, an abandoned place, a deserted planet. The air was thin. The environment was extremely harsh. 3 days. After flying for 3 whole days, Long Fei still could not see the polar ice place's head, and this did not help but cause him to panic a little. Did he finally walk out of his seat? Why don't you go all the way to the end? Just how big is this polar ice place? In 3 days, with Long Fei's flying speed, he had traveled at least 10 million kilometers. However, still no end. He didn't see the Twilight Zone's dark world. Now he couldn't even see the black glow coming from the darkness. Long Fei could not help but suspect if he had taken the wrong path. But in every corner of polar ice place, it was the same, there was no path at all. What's the situation? Long Fei put away the wings of demon and sat cross-legged on the ground. Because of the ancient fire soul, he did not feel cold, and his entire body felt warm. What went wrong? Long Fei thought. Just as he was deep in thought, another gigantic black shadow flashed beneath the ice on his butt. Because the layer of ice was too thick, Long Fei did not immediately notice it. This can't go on. Long Fei's eyes darkened. And then, Long Fei's expression turned sinister as the idea on his body flashed one after another. Just like the multiple shadows, numerous idea formed and stood in front of Long Fei. Every single one of the idea poured Long Fei's power into them. Go find it for me, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Asterisk the 8 idea clones shot out in 8 different directions. To Long Fei, condensing a idea doppelganger wasn't anything difficult. However, it was still a little difficult to channel the power of law into their bodies, but the level wasn't high enough. The 8 idea quickly went back and forth. Suddenly, beneath the layer of ice, a huge black shadow fiercely rushed out and directly swallowed one of Long Fei's idea. Moreover, strangely, the enormous black shadow was not solid, but was also like a gigantic idea. When he broke through the ice layer did not shatter, and it remained undamaged. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the blink of an eye, huge black figures rushed out of the ice and devoured all of the idea that Long Fei had released. 8 idea clones. Although they were not Long Fei's strongest power, their cultivation was still in the realm of high gods. However, there was no room for a backhand. He made a fierce comparison. After being devoured, the black shadow rushed into the layer of ice and disappeared. Long Fei was extremely shocked. He looked at the layer of ice beneath his feet and only saw dark shadows appearing below him one after another, staring straight at him. Long Fei retreated. However, no matter how much he retreated, the black shadow still followed closely behind him. Just like Long Fei's own shadow. Long Fei secretly frowned between his brows. The idea moved once more, condensing another idea avatar. The clone charged forward. A gigantic black shadow shot out from the ice beneath Long Fei's feet, breaking through it, and headed towards the idea, at the same time engulfing it. Long Fei moved. The blade of main god in his hand slashed down. Shua. Blade chi tore through the sky. It was incomparably sharp. However, the huge shadow was not harmed in the slightest, and once again returned to the layer of ice. Long Fei's heart sank, even High Goddess could not block that blade strike earlier. This shadow actually did not receive the slightest bit of damage. It can devour my idea's avatar, so logically speaking, I should be able to kill it too, but why is it like a shadow, unharmed? This layer of ice. It's like a mirror. If you put it in a mirror, then, is it the sky that it cares for? Or is it something inside the mirror? Buzz. Long Fei clenched his fist, and the power of a high god burst forth. The blade of main god in his hand slashed at the thick layer of ice. The ice cracked. Crack, crack. With Long Fei as the center, the ice layers collapsed on all 4 sides, the cracks extending for thousands of kilometers, and the gullies reached dozens of meters. However, the thickness of the layer of ice exceeded Long Fei's expectations, and no water had flowed out. Moreover, what Long Fei didn't expect was that the shattered ice layer and the enormous black figure had actually multiplied in size. All of them stared at Long Fei with even more sinister expressions. The mirror is broken. One mirror becomes countless mirrors, and more things come out to look at. In that instant, Long Fei raised his eyes and stared straight at the sky. His body moved, and without caring if he had a target, his hands sank, ultimate boxing. Boom! It rose up from the ground, then exploded towards the sky. The power of the ultimate boxing was extremely strong, possessing the strength to instantly kill everything. His fist struck against something in the sky, smashing against a thick layer of steel plates. Long Fei's arms went numb, and his body fell down from midair. He only saw a transparent rhombus-shaped shield appeared in the sky. Dome! Long Fei immediately thought of the dome where the Devil Island had appeared. Looking at the diamond-shaped shield above the deep abyss ice plains, Long Fei's heart tightened. The dome of the Devil Island made it hard for Long Fei to breathe. Billions of lives were destroyed in the Devil Island. If it were not for a super reviving technique, the entire Devil Island would still be covered in bones. Looking at the dome above Polar Ice Place, Long Fei was furious. Different from the dome on the Devil Island, this rhombus dome was a little higher in level. However, Long Fei was not afraid. The dome was actually a super array. It was very easy to break this formation. He found the formation aperture. But finding the formation aperture was too complicated. Long Fei thought that there was another way to break through the barrier, and that was his favorite. Simple and crude. That was to destroy the formation in one move. And then Long Fei slightly moved his right hand. I don't care what kind of dome or formation it is, I want it to be destroyed. Power of the shadows. Zero seals. Shua. The dragon-shaped mark on Long Fei's right arm moved, and a ray of black light shot out. At the same time, Long Fei's holy power value instantly consumed space. He unfurled his devil wings, and Long Fei took a step forward into the air. In his hand was the blade of Main God. Looking at the diamond-shaped dome covered in black light, break for me, rumble. It furiously slashed down. Without divine power, pure strength. The power of the dark, definitely zero seal. It didn't matter if you were a human, a ghost, a storm, or a spell formation. As long as you were entangled by the power of darkness, you would lose everything, becoming zero. Long Fei smashed apart the rhombus-shaped dome with his blade. However, at the instant he shattered the rhombus imprint, the black figure beneath the layer of ice let out an excited roar, as if 10,000 ghosts had just emerged from the dawn. Chapter 21:20 The Chaos of the World. Chapter 21:20 The Chaos of the World are, ha, ha, ah, ha, ha, ah, ha, ha. One after another, mournful ghost cries came from the depths of the ice. The huge black figures broke through the ice one by one. This time, it was different from the previous ones. This time, they were going to smash the layer of ice to smithereens. His face was ferocious. They were all like ancient demons. It's out. I'm finally out. Ha ha ha. You want to use the seal to stop me? Dream on. Ha ha ha. Brat, I didn't think that you would actually have the power to break the 6 hell formation. Ha ha ha. Thank you so much, but your little body should be recovering greatly. In less than a moment. From above the ice field, it flowed towards the devil's source spirit. Long Fei looked at the cracked rhombus dome, and thought to himself, could these rhombus domes be used for the giant demons beneath the seal ice plains? F***CK. I thought it was to block my path. Long Fei muttered in his heart. Looking at the surrounding demon source spirits, he said, you better get the hell back, otherwise I'll blast you all back into your mother's stomach. These demons were not simple. Although they were just source spirits, Long Fei could feel that these source spirits were filled with a strong power. It was unknown who said that these demons' seal were here. 100,000 planes was the size of a speck of dust within the universal large world, but many things that did not belong to this world had appeared. Gobble Deguk. The ancient fire soul of the seal of the Kiara realm. There were also things that he understood and could not accept. Actually, this was also the reason why Long Fei had appeared here. This 100,000 planes were different from the others. Long Fei did not know. With the Dragon Palace and the Mu clan being such huge forces, how could they casually find such a small plane to do the same in front of Long Fei's trial grounds? Humph. Little kid, what an arrogant tone you have. However, I like it. It suits this demon's taste very well. It would be even better if it was a bit stronger. While they were talking, the devil source spirit moved, directly pouncing towards Long Fei, opening its mouth wide in an attempt to swallow Long Fei whole. Long Fei tensed up. He fed her a few god power pills consecutively. His holy power value was currently at 0, so he was unable to release any magical equipment or techniques. Relying on the god power pill to recover too little holy power value was simply too useless. However, Long Fei faced countless life and death situations, and in this kind of situation, he became even calmer and more composed. Rumble. The demonic shadow descended, covering Long Fei. Long Fei's body instantly fell into the devil shadow. At this moment, Long Fei's fists sank, and the last bit of divine power exploded out, smashing down heavily. Rumble. Double punch. The demonic shadow shook slightly and retreated continuously. While he was sick, he had to take his life. As long as he could kill a source spirit, Long Fei's holy power value would guarantee his ability to release any skill or magic item that he wanted to. He took a step forward. Not allowing the demon shadow to stand still, he punched out with both of his fists. Violent winds and torrential rain. Each punch was more vicious than the last, not giving the phantom any chance to breathe. Bang, bang, bang. Hey, kid, you seem to have enjoyed your play quite a bit. Nearby, the devil source spirit sinisterly laughed with contempt. Long Fei's eyes shook. He realized that he had only hit a thick block of ice, without a single wound. Concealment. No. This demon was not an ordinary demon. He looked at Long Fei and said, "Kid, it's been hard on you. Be good and let me steal your life. This is your honor. At least I will make your body the most feared existence in this world." Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. In that instant, the spirit body of the source spirit suddenly split apart, transforming into a dozen green ghostly and fire-like skull shadows rushing towards Long Fei. A strange laughter resonated in the air. The surrounding source spirits also began to laugh sinisterly. Damn it! Long Fei shouted in his heart. He had been too careless in exhausting his holy power value. He definitely could not use the power of the darkness carelessly. Once it was released, it would mean that his fighting strength would drop to 1%. He was not Li Yuanba. He had to rely on his blue amount in order to activate his technique. Now, Long Fei tensed up. Looking at the skulls that were charging at him, he knew that if he were to be entangled, it was truly possible that his body would be possessed. Even if there were God's immortal bedes, it would be useless. It can only help you reconstruct your physical body. Since your physical body isn't dead yet, it is naturally useless against it. In a moment of desperation, Long Fei's body jumped into the bottomless crevice of the dark ice. No! The source spirit released a tearing roar. Even the evil spirits were trembling. The entire ice field seemed to be cracking. Long Fei jumped into the abyss, but his source spirit did not chase after him, because he was afraid of what was inside. Damn it! Yun Hun stood at the edge of the abyss, looking at the bottomless abyss. He said gloomily, "Kid, why are you doing this? Letting me possess, at least your body will be remembered by the world. Jump into the abyss. Do you know what's inside? That is the unbridled sea, the infernal realm. You will never be able to reincarnate." His source spirit lamented. Long Fei's body was perfect, and he was even able to destroy the 6 hell formation, so his strength was definitely not simple. Yet he had to die in Wu Huang Sea. What a pity! What a pity! At this time, a source spirit flew over. "Honored Demon Lord, what should we do now? Our soul demon clan has been expelled from Universal World. The seal is in this kind of desolate place, and there's a 6 hell formation above it, and there's a forbidden area below it that's absorbing our essence. I really want to see what kind of world these 100,000 planes are. Since you're here, hee, then we must kill everyone in these 100,000 planes, ha ha ha." In that instant, the source spirit moved and turned into a ball of black light before disappearing into the horizon. Polar region. No one would care about this kind of place, no one would care about it at all, even the main temple's gods were the same. However, Just 1 minute ago, the main temple was trembling violently. A ball of black light appeared on the display screen in the sky above main temple. This has never happened. What kind of magic tribe is this? Why haven't I seen it before? Demonic chi fills the sky, the stench of blood everywhere. Who released them? Now is not the time to talk about this. The most important thing is to solve this problem. Solve what? Anyway, they don't dare to attack our main temple. Mortal beings are just ants. What does life or death have to do with us? I have an idea. How about lead them to the Devil Island? As soon as he finished, the eyes of all the gods immediately lit up as they began to laugh sinisterly. Thank you for your support. Chapter 21-21 Ming Clan. Chapter 21-21 Ming Clan Polar Ice Place. Dark Abyss. Long Fei did not know that if he were to release the Soul Demon clan here, it would cause enormous destruction to the 100,000 planes. These magic tribe did not belong to the 100,000 planes. Moreover, these magic tribe were bloodthirsty, and grew not even a blade of grass where they went. The 100,000 planes had fallen into an enormous crisis. Huff! Long Fei exhaled, his eyes slowly opened, and his entire body instantly sat on the ground, and jumped up. Where is this? Looking around, the surroundings were completely dark, and he couldn't see anything clearly. I thought that the one below Polar Ice Place was just a piece of sea. It doesn't look like it. Long Fei muttered. Raising his head to look at the sky that could no longer be seen, he said softly, "Looks like I'm trapped here. Let's figure out what this place is first." The idea slightly moved. The ancient fire soul turned into a small golden dragon, emitting light from the golden dragon's body. Long Fei's line of sight slowly became clear as well. Chunks of bluestone. It was like a huge training field. If it really was a training field, then this sect was too grand. Long Fei did not study it closely, but looked towards a nearby flight of stairs. That was the only way. Long Fei walked up. With the ancient fire soul-s imprinting on it, everything around him became clear and the stairs were very wide. The only thing he could understand was how to go down one step at a time. If the square is a martial arts practice field, then the stairs should be up. Could it be that this sect lives underground? Since I'm here, I might as well take care of it. There was no holy power value. The power of law was still suppressed. It was simply impossible for Long Fei to fly out of the abyss. Furthermore, everything here was completely mysterious. Long Fei wanted to know whether or not there were any remnants of large sects down there. Polar region. In a frozen place. Humans were not suitable for survival at all, so who would establish a sect in such a place? Or could it be? Once upon a time, this was not an extremely cold place. What happened to turn out like this? Long Fei kept walking down, and it took him an hour to finish walking up the stairs. In this 1 hour, he clearly calculated that there were 9,999 of these stairs. This number was also very special. Below the stairs was yet another plaza that stretched in all directions. In addition, there were large trees that reached into the skies. Although they were already withered, one could still see the luxuriant foliage they once possessed. 100,000 planes. Long Fei had entered many sects and academies. However, there had never been a sect that could compare to this one. Just in terms of aura alone, he was thousands of miles away. All around the square were buildings. Each of them was well preserved, as if they were buildings in the immortal world. There's actually such a super sect hidden in the extreme realms? Long Fei was shocked. This is too unbelievable. He knew the polar regions. There were no records of a sect appearing in the extreme regions. In other words, this sect was incomparably ancient and existed since before the appearance of the main temple, even before the appearance of the ancient giant. The birth of planes. Or it could be formed from heaven and earth, and become essence. Or the almighty powerhouse could be condensed using unparalleled magic power. No matter how it was formed. Each plane would take billions of years to form, or perhaps even longer than that. In the place Long Fei was currently at, The surrounding buildings had completely different styles compared to the 100,000 places on the surface. He came to an ancient sect. Long Fei walked into a building. Kung Fu Storage Pavilion. Each of the 3 levels of the circular buildings were like a palace. The surroundings were filled with bookshelves, and the shelves were filled with books. The divine burying art. Great earth spirit art. Fire whistling fist. Damn, why have I never heard of these cultivation techniques before? Long Fei was shocked once again. This was only the cultivation technique books placed on the first floor. Long Fei had never seen these before. He hadn't even heard of it. Judging from the cover of the book, these should all be solo books. Soul record? What is this? Long Fei did not care about these cultivation technique. Since the blasting fist had already reached the great perfection stage, there was no need to absorb any more cultivation techniques. But Long Fei still could not resist his curiosity. He gently raised his hand, taking it like a strange soul recording. At this moment, buzz! A power suddenly exploded in his mind. Long Fei's body immediately sank, his brain felt like it was about to split open. The sound was heard. Who dares to touch the things of the Ming clan? He didn't see him in person, but... However, that voice was incomparably clear, and it resounded within the entire Kung Fu Storage Pavilion, and carried an incomparably immense pressure. In front of this voice, Long Fei felt like he was an ant standing in front of a giant. This feeling of being crushed made him very unhappy. Long Fei shouted out, "Lousy! A scumbag! How dare you speak such nonsense? You're courting death." His voice was filled with anger, and the moment he finished speaking, a powerful force pounced towards Long Fei, like a monstrous wave. Moreover, Long Fei could only feel this force, but did not know how to resist. Because this power was also the form of an idea rushing over. Extremely powerful. Long Fei made a mental gesture as he used both hands to protect his chest. The ancient fire soul was wrapped all over his body. Right at this moment, the dragon-shaped mark on Long Fei's right arm suddenly moved. Buzz! A ray of light exploded. The light ray immediately turned into a huge halo, shooting out in all directions with Long Fei as the center. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just like the light of the Sareras. Every single ray of light covered the entire sect. It also neutralized the incomparably powerful energy in an instant. In the void, the voice seemed to have disappeared, not saying a single word. Not far away, a series of rumbling sounds could be heard. It was unknown if it was the sounds of the glacier collapsing or the buildings collapsing. Long Fei looked at his right arm. He didn't feel anything, everything was normal. The only thing he felt was very comfortable, his entire body felt warm. What is this? Long Fei muttered in his heart. He did not know why his right arm suddenly flickered with a bright light. Moreover, this was the first time it had appeared. It was like the glow of Sareras. He didn't know. But, however, the huge dragon among the dragon coffin knew very clearly that he had become foolish. The ancient inheritance is about to awaken, it is truly about to awaken, ha ha ha. Good boy. Ha ha ha. This is amazing. That's amazing. But, just what kind of ancient inheritance is this light? The colossal dragon was also puzzled. There were many types of ancient inheritance as fire, ice, earth, natural elements. Each attribute is different, this is the most ancient of powers. At the same time, the ancient inheritance on Long Fei's body, others knew what kind of inheritance it was. Although his power had begun to awaken, it was still impossible to know. However, what was certain was that the inheritance on Long Fei was extremely powerful. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.